Chapter 266, A Little Harvest. After flying for about an hour, there were still no signs. Suemo calmed down. He knew that panicking was not useful. Based on Silly Bird's fierce flying, she probably wouldn't stop anytime soon. As long as the direction was right, he would find her. The gray mud that Lil Pagoda spat out was a smorgasbord of substances outside the 5 elements. He didn't know what change would come after Silly Bird had eaten so much. It would be good if nothing happened to her. He was very worried. Silly Bird was the firstling beast he had owned, and he had a deep attachment to her. Even though she was very proud and had terrible habits, like showing off and not looking at people properly, but when he thought about the first time he was wounded, and Silly Bird had done her best to carry him back, his heart still was moved. Suddenly, an extremely fine sword light flashed 20 li away from him. Suemo was slightly surprised. It seemed his luck today wasn't so terrible. It required luck to be able to encounter other sword shio when flying in the air at night, especially with the drastically reduced population of Little Mountain Jia. Not even 1 in 10 remained, but he had met 2 different groups today. He was just going forward to ask if the other had seen Silly Bird when the sword light unexpectedly curved and flew towards him. Seeing the situation, Suemo didn't move and waited for the other. When the other flew close, Suemo saw his appearance. The person was an extremely young shouja in his early 20s. The light glimmering Ling armor did not look like something average. His feet were stepping on a flying sword shaped like a Ling snake. He looked very carefree as he flew in the wind. Seeing the pride on the other's face, Suemo muttered inside. Before he spoke, he heard the other shout, "Hey, do you know 5 element spells?" Suemo instantly was discontent, his brow unconsciously furrowing. He speculated inside that this person definitely was a disciple that had just come out of the sect to gain experience. Surviving in the outside, just this kind of arrogant and brash tone was enough for him to die multiple times. I know some. Suemo still planned on asking about Silly Bird, so he endured it. The person's eyes lit up. "Come with me." Finishing, he turned and left. Suemo rubbed his nose. Where had this Silly Bird came from? Oh, no. If Silly Bird knew that he had given her and the guy in front of him had the same name, she would be humiliated to the point of hitting the wall to suicide. The ignorance of the other caused Suemo to not know what to say. His mind suddenly moved. How could a guy like this have survived in Little Mountain Jie? The only place he could think of was Clear Sky Sect. Only Clear Sky Sect could have such an unworldly disciple. "You are a disciple of Clear Sky Sect?" Suemo asked, tilting his head. "Haha, you know that Yi is from Clear Sky Sect. Since you know, then obey. If Yi is happy, there's some benefit for you. If you provoke Yi, no matter how big Little Mountain Jia is, there is no place for you to hide," the person said proudly as he turned around. It really was meeting one's enemy on a narrow road. Since he knew the other was a disciple of Clear Sky Sect, Suemo didn't have any more worries. With a flip of the hand, a flying sword appeared. This flying sword was serenely green, with rippling waves and extremely nimble. This sword was called Serene Water Sword, peak of 3rd grade. It was even better than the water drop sword that Suemo previously had. Suemo would only pick the talismans that he liked or found useful from what they had captured and put them into his ring. His ring at this time was piled full with fine talismans and rare materials. This serene water sword was just 3rd grade, but its entire body was forged from serene green water, and was rich in water element power. It was already the peak of 3rd grade talismans. With the serene water sword in his hand, Suemo seemed to be walking on the ground in the air. Pia, taking a series of small paces. Wind rose when his feet touched the air. Suemo held no fear when facing a Ningmai. He had defeated Ningmai Shouja when he had been in Juji. Now that he had broken through to Ningmai, his confidence had grown more. Even more, his fantasy enemy during this period of time had been the clear sky old forefather. Compared to the fear of a Jin Dan, a Ningmai third stratum expert didn't seem so scary. His first attack was, Li water burning heavens. In an instantly, the body of the serene water sword was covered in water-shaped flames. These clear and transparent flames were like a piece of living crystal as it flickered. Compared to the flame of the past that had been multiple zhang long, the water-shaped flame was now just a short one qi, silent and serene. This meant that Zhuo Mo's sword essence was even more condensed and had improved. Li Water Sword Scripture was only a third-grade scripture, but Zhuo Mo had comprehended sword essence. If he persisted in walking down this path, tempered his sword essence, and experimented with variations, he may be able to create new sword moves. Zhuo Mo had not expected the sword essence. He comprehended the most of all the sword essences was Li Water Sword Essence and not Ice Dragon Sword Essence. In his hands, the sword scripture that was just a small third grade seemed to change. It was as though he did it without any effort. There was no pause. His little trot created countless afterimages, the sword in his hand serenely burning. A gentle slice upwards. There was none of the past explosiveness, or the sword essence radiating out, or the howling. As clear and serene as water, as bright as fire. A serene, light, and almost careless spark flashed. The face of the clear sky sect disciple changed greatly. He shouted angrily, "How gutsy! You dare!" The voice suddenly stopped. His expression changed greatly. A sword essence that was almost tangible securely locked onto him. Sword essence. He was actually an expert that comprehended sword essence. Clear Sky sect was also a sword shio sect. He naturally knew the dangers, and understood that he had offended the wrong person this time. Among the Clear Sky sect disciples, only 3 of the Shixiang had comprehended sword essence. He had actually randomly encountered such a person. He was full of regret. The internal competition of Clear Sky sect was very fierce. The power of the Shixiang had long been impressed into his mind. Gritting his teeth, his hands swiped, and an extremely small light shot at Zhuo Mo. In the air, Zhuo Mo's figure did not move. His wrist flicked lightly, and produced a round wall of fire. The wall of fire was like a great net that caught the light. Zhuo Mo stopped his figure, and grasped at the air. The clear flame wrapped around the light that slowly flew towards him. Sky sand. Zhuo Mo's eyes suddenly lit up. Without any hesitation, he opened his mouth and spat out a thread of pure golden flame. It was golden crow fire. Once golden crow fire appeared, Zhuo Mo retracted the sword essence. The transparent flame turned to vapor and evaporated into the air. The golden crow fire drew out a line of fire and wrapped around the light. Golden crow fire, this Clear Sky sect disciple paled and exclaimed, his voice trembling. Once the golden crow fire wrapped around the sky sand, Zhuo Mo couldn't help but shake his head. It really was a waste of something good. Sky sand was the essence of earth element. This sky sand that was the size of a sand particle and was 800 caddies in weight. Such a precious treasure of the earth, yet the impression method was so crude. Zhuo Mo, who had always been frugal, felt his heart was in pain. The golden crow fire easily wiped away the formation on the sky sand. This sky sand revealed its original appearance. Square and symmetrical, it was an extremely precise cube. The color was deep gold. Entering his palm, Zhuo Mo felt his right hand was weighed down, and he almost dropped it. So heavy. A special ethy energy spread out. Zhuo Mo suddenly felt as though he was situated in dense sand. Good thing. Zhuo Mo was overjoyed, and instantly threw it into his ring. This piece of sky sand might be small, but it was a rare 4th grade material. If he could forge it well, he would have another good talisman. The Clear Sky sect disciple was dumbstruck. This particle of sky sand was his life-saving talisman. He gaped upon seeing the other easily subdue it. After a while, he managed to react, and swore, pointing at Swamo, you. After, ing for a while, Swamo didn't hear any further words and snickered. He examined the other from top to bottom. I really hadn't seen it. You brat, you do have some oil on you. You, what do you want? The Clear Sky sect disciple instantly panicked when he saw the greedy gaze Swamo had. I don't want much. Everyone should share good things. Swamo snickered as he spoke. A few yellow and red rope pieces appeared on his hands. Each red rope was just the thickness of a chopstick. Immortal tying chain. The Clear Sky sect disciple almost fainted. Coming out of a big sect like Clear Sky sect, one could be unskilled at other things, but their knowledge and experience would definitely be stronger than those from small sections. That stack of red in Swamo's hands were all immortal tying chains. Immortal tying chains were the general name for a type of talisman. There was only one use for them, to tie up the enemy. The first impression he had of the immortal tying chain was that it was very valuable. Because it was to imprison the other, immortal tying chains were mostly woven and forged out of materials that were not easily damaged by flying swords. That would guarantee they were strong enough that the enemy could not easily break free or cut it. He had never seen someone taking out 8 immortal tying chains at once. Even more, he had never thought there would be a day he would have to face 8 immortal tying chains at once. You're pretty knowledgeable, Swamo said. However, his hands were not slow, the 8 immortal tying chains flying out. Once the immortal tying chains left his palm, they grew to 10 zhang long. The 8 immortal tying chains caused it to appear as though the sky was covered in immortal tying chains. The other basically had no power to resist. After struggling for a few moments, he was tied up tightly. However, when Swamo saw the gigantic rope egg made from the immortal tying chains making 8 layers around, he was dumbstruck too. He hurriedly took down the extra immortal tying chains, leaving behind one. When he saw that Clear Sky sect disciple again, the other had already fainted. His eyes then lit up. This was a pretty good battle tactic. Immortal tying chains were third-grade talismans, only had one purpose, and were very expensive. He hadn't noticed them before, only finding them somewhat interesting, so he had put them into his ring. The scene just now had made him realize the power of this move. One immortal tying chain was not strong enough, the other could dodge or escape, but the immortal tying chain had one benefit: it didn't require much control. When Ling power was channeled, each immortal tying chain would be 10 zhang long. 8 pieces of chain 10 zhang long was enough to create a secure and large net in the sky. Unable to be dodged or blocked. If he had to face such a thing, he couldn't help but shudder. Just having thought of a new tactic, Swamo's mood was very good. When he looked at the Clear Sky sect disciple tied up like rice dumplings, Swamo's mood became even better. As expected, one had to leave the home. If they didn't leave, there would be no gains. His hand beckoned lightly, and the Clear Sky sect securely tied up flew in front of him. Swamo hummed a little tune and started to methodically plunder. No ring. Then he will take the clothes, oh no, take the Ling armor. Chapter 267, Ambush. Swamo was very experienced and practiced. In an instant, the Clear Sky sect disciple only had his pants left. The only thing he felt regretful about was that this guy wasn't as rich as he had thought. He had searched through this guy's entire body and hadn't found a second sky sand particle. This result clearly could not satisfy him. His hand opening slightly, water quickly gathered at his palm and formed a ball of water. Swamo slammed the water ball onto the face of the Clear Sky sect disciple. The Clear Sky sect disciple slowly woke up. The coldness of his entire body made him realize in the shortest amount of time what had happened. He was like a pure little lamb, trembling and looking with terror at Swamo, I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you answer them, I'll spare your life, Mo grinned, baring his teeth. This grin in the eyes of the clear sky sect disciple was like a big grey wolf opening its jaws in front of him, flesh and blood still lingering on the sharp white teeth. He uncontrollably shuddered all over. He finally understood that this black-skinned person in front of him wasn't afraid of clear sky sect. His mind was blank. How was that possible? How could there still be a Xianxia in Little Mountain Jia that wasn't afraid of clear sky sect? Looking at the other's dazed eyes, Mo became slightly impatient. His killing intent showed. Gu doesn't have the time to wait for you. The other shook and woke up from his daze. He swallowed. Darren, please ask. Please ask. Have you seen a grey shadow recently? Moving at very fast speed. Mo stared at the clear sky sect disciple's eyes. Grey shadow? What grey shadow? The eyes of the clear sky sect disciple was still confused. Mo's heart suddenly dropped. He had been staring straight at the other's eyes and knew the other had not lied. Had those 4 people lied to him? Suspicion rose. He said coldly, I just saw 4 people right now. They said they seen it, and was in this direction. I haven't seen, the clear sky sect disciple suddenly yelled, 4 people. Was there also a woman? Yes. Mo saw the other's expression and knew he had been tricked. Motherfucker. Lu Donghua, you bastard, you dare to make trouble for ye. The clear sky sect disciple that was swearing saw Mo's cold eyes, and explained, Darren, you were tricked. Those 4 are also disciples of my sect. They purposefully directed you over here to mess up our good matter. He suddenly closed his mouth. Good matter? What good matter? Mo narrowed his eyes. No, nothing, just that our Xixiang, seeing the other nervously stammer, Mo didn't waste words, his hand grasping around the other's neck. The terrifying strength passed on from Mo's fingers caused his soul to fly out. He didn't dare to hesitate and rapidly said, it's a secret realm. A secret realm. We found a secret realm. The entrance to the secret realm needs Xianxia that understands the 5 elements to open it. We don't have anyone that is skilled in the 5 elements. Lu Donghua and the others want to get a share, but were driven away by Huang Xixiang. So, hearing this, Mo finally realized. So it was a secret realm. He had been wondering why the clear sky sect disciples would run to Little Mountain Jia. Now he knew the cause, he couldn't help but grimace. His heart was stirred by the secret realm, but at this time, finding Silly Bird was more important. He then asked, where did you get this sky sand? Don't tell me there is only 1 particle. Humph. This particle of sky sand was bestowed when this one's master was alive. There is only 1. Seeing the disbelief on Mo's face, he grimaced and said, sky sand is the treasure of the sect, and produced by the sect's sect protector Ling beast crouching soil rhinoceros. 1 particle is produced every 3 years. Right now, the crouching soil rhinoceros is kept by the old forefather, no one dares to think of obtaining it. You don't have this, you don't have that, you still want to lie. Mo said coldly. I, frightened by Mo, this disciple instantly didn't know what to say. Suddenly, he became alert. Grey shadow. Grey shadow. I remember now. I didn't see the grey shadow you spoke of, but I heard a Xixiang mention it. Seeing the faint scorn on Mo's face, he was even more panicked. Really? I swear. I definitely am not lying. It was Lei Xixiang who said it. He said he had just seen a grey shadow. He thought it was a treasure that had come out of the earth and wanted to catch it. But the grey shadow was too strong. Lei Xixiang said that ball of grey energy was not something inside the 5 elements, and should be a treasure. Hearing this, Mo's mind jumped. Everything could be to fool him, but that phrase, "not something inside the 5 elements," made him believe it slightly. Where did the gray ball go after that? I don't know, Lei Shixiang didn't say. What is he called? Lei Hao. How many of you are there? 22. Suemo asked a few more details. This disciple didn't dare to conceal anything. After he finished questioning the disciple, Suemo gave a satisfied expression, and his hand lightly squeezed. The disciple's neck instantly was snapped, an expression of disbelief still remaining on his face. Suemo lightly flicked his hand, and threw the lifeless corpse into the cloud layer. He hadn't planned on letting this guy go in the first place. He and the Clear Sky sect were enemies. Even more, this was Little Mountain Jie. Only disciples like him that came from the sect would believe someone would let them live. The female Xiao stood motionlessly next to him. His mind suddenly moved, and his body sank down, hiding among the thick cloud layer. He turned and looked. The female Xiao was still beside him. Through the mist, he could only see a faint outline. Suemo smiled slightly. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he couldn't feel the female Xiao's presence at all, even though the other wasn't even a zhang away from him. This was always the case. No matter how much he scanned using his consciousness, he couldn't detect any bit of the female Xiao's presence. Many times, the female Xiao would give him the feeling of coldness. He could feel the strange power, but could not find the presence of life. Suemo took away his gaze, and took out the shadowless cape from his ring. Once the light shadowless cape was put on, his presence became fainter. After a while, his presence disappeared into the air. A while later, 4 figures arrived at Suemo's former position. He had stopped here for a time. There also seems to be that idiot Lu Hui's presence. Lu Donghua carefully inspected the surroundings, and gave a satisfied expression. It seems they already had a conflict. There is only the 2 of them. Huang Zhuoguang has more than 20. The shitty beside him shook his head. It could be seen the leader of the 4 was Lu Donghua. Lu Donghua appeared to be in his 40s, the light in his eyes hidden away. He chuckled. Maybe not. This person's strength isn't ordinary, and especially the woman beside him has unfathomable strength. Our sect's disciples are probably not a match. This strong? The 3 people all had shocked expressions. Lu Donghua's expression was solemn. Everyone, be careful, don't get into conflict with them. These 2 don't have common origins. Don't underestimate the Xiuzhe of Little Mountain Jie. They are used to killing, which we cannot compare with. The other 3 gave unconcerned expressions. On their journey, if they stated their identity as Clear Sky sect disciples, the other people either flattered them or had faces full of fear. Seeing the situation, Lu Donghua knew that he was wasting his words and did not speak further. We should be careful. Seeing the lack of concern on their faces, he slowly said, if Huang Zhuoguang and the others knew we are still chasing after them, everyone won't have good days in the future. When he mentioned Huang Zhuoguang, the other 3 reflexively gave terrified expressions. Lu Donghua looked at them, and prepared to speak when his expression suddenly changed. Careful. Several red shadows suddenly burrowed out of the cloud layer and leapt at them. Immortal tying chains, they exclaimed and hurried to summon their flying swords. Motherfucker, why is there so many? Don't use flying swords, use fire to burn them. Lu Donghua reminded loudly. Talismans like immortal tying chains were hard to damage with flying swords, but things like fire and ice were their enemy. The people that had planned on using flying swords to slice quickly dodged. The female Xiao took out a jade tablet. This was a beast service card. Its entire body was bright red as though it was made from fire jade. A bright red fox was nimbly depicted on the surface. Seeing her take out the beast service card, Lu Donghua and the others released a breath. The beast service card sealed a 3rd-grade firetail fox. This firetail fox had already produced a fire tail and was perfect to subdue these immortal tying chains. But before he could rejoice, he suddenly saw the air behind Shimmy ripple. His face suddenly changed. Careful! Shimmy raised her head with confusion, not understanding why. A flying sword suddenly appeared 1 chi away from the back of the Clear Sky sect female Shio's head. A smear of light flashed. There were no Ling power ripples, no sword moves, just a simple thrust. Pew! The Clear Sky sect female Shio who didn't detect it didn't have the time to respond before the sword flashed, and her head separated from her body, a pillar of blood thrusting high into the air. Shimmy! The other 3 Xiozha were infuriated when they saw how terrible Shimmy's death was. Lu Donghua felt his head ring. Shimmy and he had had a good relationship from youth. Damn it! When he saw the person behind Shimmy, his pupils suddenly shrank. The fury and killing desire swept away, his heart sinking to the bottom. It was him. It's you. Lu Donghua gritted his teeth and said hatefully, I underestimated you. Zhua Mo sighed inside. This shadowless cape was really the best weapon for assassination. He had come so close to the other from behind and the other had not detected him. But it was a pity that if he moved, he would reveal his presence. To completely conceal his presence, it would need almost 2 breaths. 2 breaths were not a long time, but in battle, it was enough to be fatal. This caused the shadowless cape to have only 1 chance to attack, and greatly limited its usefulness. However, that was more than enough for Zuomo. As for Lu Donghua's hate-filled words, it didn't cause any ripple in his mind. As expected, this was a greenhorn. Facing the enemy and wasting so many words. Without the firetail fox, the other 3 instantly sank into an extremely reactive state. The 8 immortal tying chains were like 8 red snakes dancing in the sky and chasing after the 3 people. If one of them was brushed, even a little bit, it would be like a Ling snake and coil around a person. These immortal tying chains were abnormally nimble and chased them tightly. For a Xiozha like Sua Mo who had high spiritual power, controlling many talismans at the same time was their most skilled technique. A viciousness flashed across Lu Donghua's eyes. He reached and took out a talisman. Chapter 268, 9-turn Sky Soil Disc. Clear Sky Sect was a sword sect, but it had other branches. Lu Donghua was a successor of one of those branches. His branch specialized in earth element spells, but their branch had declined in power. However, Lu Donghua was still able to establish himself by relying on a treasure, the 9-turn Sky Soil Disc. The 9-turn Sky Soil Disc was a talisman passed down from a Jindan of their branch. Clear Sky Sect produced Sky Soil. Even though Sky Soil was slightly less valuable than Sky Sand, but it was still a rare earth element material. Among the earth element materials, it belonged to the 3rd grade. This ancestor had used 9,000 caddies of Sky Soil, and entered into seclusion for 10 years in order to forge the 9-turn Sky Soil Disc. The day the talisman had formed, the earth energy around all of Clear Sky Sect had spread, and shook. Their sect had become famous. At the time, their branch hadn't been like it was now. That elder had been the 2nd most powerful expert in the sect. In the end, they lacked the support of profound spells. After this elder, the branch had gradually declined and became poor. When it came to Lu Donghua's generation, there were the 4 of them. This 9-turn Sky Soil Disc had passed into Lu Donghua's hands. Generation after generation of forging lasting 400 years, this 9-turn Sky Soil Disc had actually birthed a hint of cognition and became a 6th grade talisman. This was one of the reasons that large sects were so strong. Even sects like Clear Sky Sect who did not have relatively long histories or deep foundations were not something normal sects could compare to. At this time, Lu Donghua was holding the 9-turn Sky Soil Disc in his hands. His expression was stern, all the Ling power in his body flooding into the disc. The 9-turn sky soil disk was entirely dark yellow and not at all eye-catching. The surface was covered in fine golden patterns on one side, the other with concentric circles, dividing the 9-turn sky soil disk into 9 parts. A golden palm was carved into the very center. A faint brown light rose from the 9-turn sky soil disk in Lu Donghua's hands. It appeared as though he was holding a ball of light. Boom, the light suddenly exploded. Suemo felt the sky above his darken, all the starlight was completely covered. The surroundings were filled with yellow-brown earth energy that covered him like a mist. He instantly felt an invisible force squeeze him, his expression couldn't help but change. These minuscule yellow-brown dust particles around him were actually very heavy. Suemo felt as though he was at the bottom of the deep ocean. The heavy pressure enveloped him, pressing on him so that he couldn't breathe. What talisman is this? Suemo was shocked. He struggled to turn his head and saw the female Xiao. The female Xiao was silently standing in the yellow mist, her eyes flashing with a purple light that made Suemo's bones shiver. Among the soil mist, the immortal tying chains seemed to have been stopped in midair motionless. Suddenly, the earth mist started to slowly flow. Suemo instantly felt the pressure increase. Ka ka ka. Light sounds came from the bones in his body. Suemo's body uncontrollably trembled. The shocking invisible force came squeezing from all directions. Suemo felt as though he had been dropped into a meat grinder. Pooh, what is this thing? Suemo hollered. It is an earth element talisman. You have to be careful, Pu Yao's voice sounded in his mind, containing a rare gravity. This talisman is at least 5th grade, possibly 6th grade. 6th grade. Suemo wanted to spit blood. Since when was it that Ningmai could bring out 6th grade talismans? And he had to meet one. Creak creak creak. The slowly flowing earth mist contained uncontrollable force, squeezing so much that Suemo's innards had almost condensed into a ball. Suemo watched helplessly as his body slowly flowed along with the slowly flowing earth mist. He stayed motionless, but his face had changed shape as though it could explode at any time. The 3 people from Clear Sky sect were not affected at all by the earth mist. If the mist neared them, it seemed to encounter an invisible wall and could not proceed further. Xixiang's 9-turn sky soil disk is so powerful. I think that in the sect, other than old forefathers' clear sky sword, then it should be Xixiang's 9-turn sky soil disk. Yes. When Xixiang cultivates, bright soil scripture, to the 5th level, even Huang Zhuoguang won't be a match for Xixiang. The 2 saw Suemo's sorry state, and laughed. This person is going to meet a tragic end. Xixiang like Shimin definitely won't have mercy on this guy. If he doesn't grind this guy to meat paste, he definitely wouldn't stop. Shimi has also died, oh. The other person couldn't help but be slightly depressed. When this affair is over, I'm planning on going to Sky Water Jie. Ah. Why are you thinking of going to Sky Water Jie? The sect is a mess right now, there's nothing interesting, he smiled mockingly. Anyways, I'm not a core disciple, the sect will let me go. The other person was silent. He suddenly noticed the female Xiao and was shocked. That woman is weird. The body of the female Xiao was covered in a faint layer of purple light. She seemed to be nailed to the air. No matter how the earth mist in the surroundings flowed, she did not move. The 2 of them were speechless from shock and gaped. The earth mist was fine, but it was forged from 9,000 caddies of sky soil. Any living being could not possibly resist inside the earth mist. The 9-turn sky soil disk was a 6th grade talisman, a talisman that Jin Dan used, and should not have appeared in the hands of a Ningmai. This woman was able to resist the 9-turn sky soil disk. Lu Donghua also noticed the female Xiao, shock flashing across his mind. He rarely used the 9-turn sky soil disk. One reason was that he was worried that other people would see it and become greedy. Another was that this treasure was naturally powerful, but it was beyond his cultivation. It was extremely hard for him to activate it. But of the few times he had, there wasn't a time he hadn't been easily victorious. He had never met someone who could resist. On the 9-turn sky soil disk, light flashed and circled on the outermost layer of the surface. This was the first turn of the 9-turn sky soil disk. After a while, the female Xiao still remained motionless. Even the dark male, who seemed quite disheveled, was also struggling to resist. A bad feeling appeared in Lu Donghua's heart, but he didn't believe the two people could resist the second turn's power. In this short while, a third of his Ling power had been consumed. He knew that he had to activate the second turn immediately. Otherwise, even if he wanted to activate it, he wouldn't have enough Ling power. He closed his eyes, and the second circle of the 9-turn sky soil disk lit up. The earth mist suddenly became dense. Before, it had only been a hazy earth mist. Now, the density multiplied, and the color turned dark. The two Shidi were shocked and their expressions became serious. The two knew that Xixiang had activated the power of the 9-turn sky soil disk's second turn. The earth mist was extremely dense, so much that one could not make out their fingers. The dust in the air was irritating to the nose. The earth element power was so rich it was almost tangible. Suemo felt the pressure multiply again. He couldn't control himself from wailing, and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. As the blood landed in the earth mist, it was ground into minuscule particles and mixed among the earth mist. A frightening hint of red appeared in the brown earth mist. The terrifying power slowly flowed. His body seemed to feel it was crushed between two mountains. The terrifying pressure could not be avoided and made him helpless. Under the shocking burden, every blood vessel, muscle, and bone of his body were on the verge of failing. Death was so close to him. It seemed to be next to his face, coldly staring at him. Suomo's mind was blank. Enormous pain and hopelessness filled every corner of his body. Calm and clarity had disappeared completely. The only thing Suemo possessed was the most basic instinct to survive. Ah 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 ah. Suemo furiously shouted. Spells, tactics, in this instant, they were all forgotten. Ling power and the consciousness was furiously channeled. The power of every muscle in his body was pushed to their peak instinctively. The earth mist felt Suomo's intention to resist. The surrounding earth mist flooded towards Suemo, the flowing rate increasing and the pressure suddenly mounting once again. Suemo had completely lost all of his senses. He was in his death throes, but since his body was restrained by the earth mist, he couldn't move. The light flashed on his body, sometimes sword essence, then fire, then fist energy, then hard lightning. The color of his body continued to change. It would be pure golden yellow as though it was made from gold, then it would be like black and shining jade, clear, and then there would be threads of black energy burrowing about. Inside Suomo's body, the 5-element glass bead also detected danger and automatically activated, 5-element power spreading into Suomo's body. Ah 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 ah. Suemo went completely berserk, his features twisted. He was like a wild beast trapped in a cage making his final struggle, ferocious and crazy. Suomo's body became a chaotic battlefield. He couldn't even move a finger, and couldn't send out any spell. All kinds of forces randomly flowed through his body and rampaged. Adding on the pressuring power from the outside, it turned to a mess. Damn it! Pu Yao's expression changed. The entire sea of consciousness relentlessly trembled, showing signs of collapse. The immortal tying chains that had been stuck in the mist and could not endure such strong power, they were ground into dust. The female Xiao had noticed Suomo's state. The purple light surrounding her shot up, and her entire person seemed to be covered in a ball of purple fire. The eerie purple fire was not affected at all by the earth mist, and flickered eerily. That pair of fine and perfect jade feet, with extremely slow speed, rose up. The mask could not endure such a strong pressure. Pia, it turned to dust and revealed that ugly and scabbed face. The female Xiao still did not have an expression. Pia, the dense scabs on her face could not endure the pressure, and exploded. Ball after ball of blood flowers blossomed on her face. In the blink of an eye, no part of her face was whole, and was completely covered in blood. She did not attend to it, allowing the blood on her face to slowly drip down and off her chin before being swept away by the mist to become a bloody mist. The purple fire rose again. The eyes that were flashing with the purple light actually dimmed down at this time. Her face was expressionless. Every movement required her to use all her power. She could only slowly move bit by bit. There was just a zhang between the two of them. Usually, that would only require a step. Among the heavy and fatal brown-colored earth mist, a figure covered in purple fire slowly neared at snail's pace towards another figure. Chapter 269, Who the motherfucking are you? Mo was like a wild beast without any avenue of escape. The earth mist surrounding him was thousands of caddies heavy as it flowed. His body was uncontrollably swept up in the flow of the earth mist. The female Xiao stopped, raised her face covered in blood and looked at Mo, who had separated a bit more from her, before continuing to move forward. Those perfect and flawless bare feet stepped on the eerie purple fire, traveling slowly through the heavy and dense earth mist. Lu Donghua's face was as pale as paper. He had not expected these two people were so hardy. It was the first time he had used the second turn of the 9-turn sky soil disc. He had underestimated the expenditure of Ling power. Right now, he also had no way to back down. His Ling power was almost depleted, yet the two people were still resisting. Motherfucker, where had these two terrifying people come from? He had assumed that the female Xiao was immeasurably powerful, but the hardiness of the black male surpassed his imagination. There wasn't one disciple in his sect that could hold up under the power of the 9-turn sky soil disc's second turn for so long. Not even Huang Zhuoguang could do it. What kind of weirdos were these two? His heart started to become terrified. He forced himself to calm down. He knew that there was no solution other than persisting. The black male didn't look as though he still had any capability to fight, and that female Xiao, while her face was covered in blood, shouldn't have been wounded heavily. If he took away the 9-turn sky soil disc, the two shitty wouldn't be able to stop this strange female Xiao with their abilities. The purple fire was very scary, but Lu Donghua guessed that it came at great expense. The two sides had entered a standoff to see who could last longer. The depletion of Ling power made Lu Donghua feel a weakness he never felt before. His face was as pale as paper, but he knew that it was time to go all in. Viciousness flashed through his eyes. A Ling Dan appeared on his hand. He did not hesitate to shove it into his mouth. Ling power suddenly exploded inside his body. A smear of red floated on his white face. The expressions of the two shitty changed. With this Ling primary Dan going down, Xixiang's cultivation would be damaged for at least 3 years. Xixiang was putting his life on the line. The two stopped breathing. They hadn't thought that a situation they were in control of would become one where they were risking their lives. But they knew the result of this would decide if the two lived or died. Xixiang, bring us over. The shitty that had been planning on going to Sky Water Jia after this battle ended suddenly shouted. The other shitty looked with slight puzzlement at him. Shitty, will channel Ling power to Xixiang. This shitty gritted his teeth and nodded. Right, we're in this together. Lu Donghua rejoiced inside and hurriedly cast the spell. The light flashed, and the two appeared beside him. He didn't have the energy to speak now. Seeing the situation, the other two shitty didn't waste words, each person reaching out to put a palm to his back. The three cultivated the same scripture, and the attribute of their Ling power was the same. Ling power flowed continuously from the arms of the two Shidi into Lu Donghua's body. Lu Donghua felt that the Ling power in his body had never been so plentiful. His confidence growing, the light of the nine-turn sky-soiled disk brightened. Suemo was like a wild beast at the precipice, howling angrily according to his instincts. Threads of black energy suddenly appeared on his body. The brown earth mist still was as heavy and murderous as before, but these hair-thin threads of black energy did not falter against the earth mist which could grind anything. As though nothing else existed, they climbed and squiggled on Zuomo's body. Immediately, they burrowed into Zuomo's body and disappeared. Just now, Zuomo's body had been very chaotic. Right now, there were only two colors left, red and black. A dark red alluring flame was swaying like the waists of the belly dancers. The black mist was as dark as ink and motionless. The two were clearly divided like two greedy beasts that consumed all the energy they encountered along their path. In a short amount of time, all the other powers that were roaming through Zuomo's body were swept away. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao sat with his legs crossed. The originally white and pale face had become even more pale. Beside him, the black clouds that always shrouded the gravestone had disappeared. The black clouds and the Yao fire were like two vicious beasts resting in Zuomo's body as they faced off. Zuomo's body calmed down. His consciousness also was slowly pulled back. Even though his body was still locked in place, but he could not feel the terrifying pressure of the earth mist any longer. Just having escaped with his life, Zuomo didn't have time to sigh in relief. He quickly found the red and black forces that were facing off in his body, and almost died. He knew the dangers. The dark red flame should be Pu Yao's power. Before, the vast sea of flame in his sea of consciousness had seemed like another world. Afterwards, it may have been that Pu Yao was wounded or for some other reason, and the sea of flame had disappeared. He also recognized the black clouds. It was the black cloud that always was around the gravestone. Compared to Pu Yao, who called himself a Sky Yao, the origins of the gravestone were even more mysterious. But Pu Yao seemed to be unwilling to speak of it. The connection between the Yao and the gravestone was extremely strange. They seemed to be enemies, but they were also very familiar with each other. He could never understand it. The viciousness and brutality of the two kinds of power were not disguised any longer. Just having escaped one calamity, Zuomo once again sank into a heart-racing situation. What Zuomo rejoiced about was that the two sides had not attacked each other. Without warning, the Yao fire transformed into an extremely slender thread of fire that burrowed between Zuomo's brows. The black cloud seemed like water pouring into sand, quickly seeping downwards. Zuomo could clearly see it was sinking into his bones. What were these two guys doing? Zuomo was somewhat angry. But before he could express his anger, the pressure came pushing back from all directions. Damn it! Zuomo suddenly gave a light exclamation. The pressure was still unable to be resisted, but it was not as painful as before. It seemed to be almost tolerable. Zuomo quickly discovered that it was not his imagination. Had something happened again to his body? This question flashed across his mind. Before he could inspect it, he suddenly saw a figure covered in purple fire out of the corner of his eye. All of Zuomo's thoughts suddenly stopped at that moment. His gaze was stunned. The female Xiao was close to him, the purple fire covering her entire body as she slowly inched over. What shocked Zuomo was her face, the face covered entirely in fresh blood. Blood was all over her face, so he could not see anything clearly except that pair of eyes that were slightly dim. Seeing the female Xiao move extremely slowly towards him like a puppet, for a strange reason, Zuomo suddenly had the impulse to call for her to stop. Who are you? Why? Zuomo looked dazedly at the female Xiao. For the first time in his eyes, the purple light didn't hold any kind of fear and darkness. Even though he didn't understand the reason, even though there were too many mysterious, but Suemo suddenly understood she didn't have malicious aims. No. Looking at that face covered in blood, the steps as slow as a snail, she definitely did not have malicious intentions. She definitely had a certain connection to him, maybe they knew each other before. He didn't know anything, but at this moment, a certain chord in his heart was struck. His gaze landed on the blood-covered face of the female Xiao, watched as the blood dripped off her chin into the earth mist and be ground into bloody mist before spreading throughout the earth mist. As he watched, for some unknown reason, anger suddenly rose in his heart. It was just a talisman. An indescribable fury suddenly filled Suemo's chest. His eyes instantly turned entirely red, and two balls of fire could be seen to be bouncing. His body could not move, the pressure made him feel helpless. Suemo started to channel his Ling power. The Ling power filled his arms and started to circulate with astounding speed. 1 revolution, 2 revolutions. 10 revolutions, 11 revolutions. 18 revolutions, 19 revolutions. The furiously revolving Ling power had no intentions of slowing down. The anger was like a flood. A desire to destroy suddenly rose in Suemo's heart. The slowly flowing, awe-inspiring earth mist was such an eyesore to his eyes, such an object of dislike, so much so that he wanted to destroy it. Since the moment he had first opened his eyes, this was the first time he had such a strong impulse and desire to destroy something. 20 revolutions. 21 revolutions. The flame in Suemo's pupils shook fiercely and were filled with craziness. 23 revolutions. The skin on his arms cracked open, marks of blood crisscrossing. 24 revolutions. Pia pia pia. Suddenly, blood exploded forth from the glass-like arms. The flame in Suemo's eyes danced crazily like a deep sea of flame. His features twisted, the tendons bulging. Each fiber of muscle was trembling, each bone was cracking. Get up. Suemo gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. He used all the energy in his body to push at his arms. Crack crack crack. He heard his bones crack. His eyes were all red as though he was insane. Get up. Blood streamed out of his fiercely trembling arms as they slowly moved upwards. The sea of flames in the deepest part of Suemo's eyes grew and filled every corner of his eyes. He was like an enraged beast, bellowing angrily, "Motherfucking get up." Aayawiawa. His arms suddenly sped up in their movement as though the restraint of the earth mist had lost effect. The glass-like arms, that were covered in bloody crisscrossing marks, rose up and slightly cocked back. Suemo inhaled deeply, his fire-red eyes widening as he gathered the last threads of his strength. He was like a brutal prehistoric demonic god as his arms punched out. Motherfucking die. Two fists that appeared to be carved from glass left his hands. A dignified and stern face could be seen on the surface of each fist energy. Lu Donghua's expression changed. The two fist energies viciously entered the earth mist, flew straight for 3 zhang before suddenly exploding. Heavens! It was like someone had shouted in a low booming voice, the sound was like muffled thunder, like the beat of a drum, that made one's heart shake. The earth mist that had been flowing slowly suddenly started to roil. Lu Donghua and the other two simultaneously gave a grunt, blood flowing out of their noses and mouths, their faces pale. It was as though the 3 people had been struck by lightning, remaining motionless like they were made out of wood. 24 revolution sky glass wave. The earth mist suddenly disappeared, the terrifying pressure that could not be stopped also disappeared. Starlight once again fell onto Suemo's body. The 3 people nearby suddenly dropped down like stumps of wood. The female Xiao that was no longer constrained took a step and appeared next to Suemo. All of Suemo's energy had been used up. His eyes empty, his body softened. The female Xiao picked him up with one hand. The face covered with blood was blurry. Suomo's vision grew increasingly dark. He tried to open his eyes, and his mouth, his voice like that of a mosquito. Who the motherfucking are you? Chapter 270 Great Harvest. Suemo slowly woke up, and saw the female Xiao meditating nearby. A layer of blood scabs had formed on the female Xiao's face like an ugly and terrifying mask. Suemo noticed her presence and was slightly surprised. He couldn't help but speculate. Was she injured? After being injured, control over one's presence would lessen. However, his attention quickly returned to his own body. No great pain like he had imagined was present. His entire body was in comfort like he had just had a great nap, his body was filled with energy. He instantly detected a difference. The power inside his body was so strong that he felt it unfamiliar. It seemed that his body had broken through again. He hurriedly sank into his sea of consciousness to find Pu Yao. In the bare sea of consciousness, there was only Pu Yao and a gravestone. Ah, how come it's like this? Suemo glanced around with curiosity. Pu Yao stared at him as though he wanted to eat Suemo. Sweeping across the surroundings, Suemo saw Pu Yao's gaze and jumped in fright. What are you doing? I didn't steal your Jingshi. Pu Yao snorted and didn't speak. His gaze still looked with unfriendliness at Suemo. Suemo thought of the dark red Yao fire, and then the black gravestone, and said uncertainly, that Yao fire and black cloud, it isn't that I don't want to give it back to you guys, those things, they can't be controlled, you know. As he spoke, Suemo felt it wasn't right. His tone suddenly changed, his eyes widening. That's not right. I haven't even taken you guys to task. What do you guys mean? Ah. Is Ji's body a trash center and you can throw anything you want inside? Pu Yao almost spat out a mouthful of blood, and the gravestone that always remained motionless shook frantically. You, Pu Yao's eyes almost sprouted fire. After a beat, his fingers shook as he said, don't play dumb after getting the benefits. Suemo did not feel he was unreasonable in the least. He raised an eyebrow, and suddenly jumped up. Benefit? What benefit? Gu almost lost this little life. Before, when it was one of you that was messing around, GE endured it. That's great now, you guys are even more outrageous, both of you going at it. Don't think that GE doesn't know what you two are doing. Let me tell you, be good in the future. An antique that can't keep up with the times, an old rock that can't even fart, you guys want to get benefits from GE? Ha, perish that thought. Suemo pointed at Pu Yao and the gravestone from high up, and started to swear. Pu Yao's face was filled with shock. When he managed to react after a while, his face turned red and then white. After his rant, Suemo snorted and left. After he exited the sea of consciousness, he suddenly remembered why he had gone to find Pu Yao and instantly felt bitter. He had just aimed to vent right there, and forgot his actual business. It was over. If he went to find Pu Yao now, that was akin to slapping his own mouth. Even though it was said that men could bow and kneel, but when he thought of Pu Yao's scornful expression, Suemo decided to wait a while. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao gritted his teeth, his face switching between green and white. Beside him, shadows floated from the gravestone. The figure that had been lightly depicted on the gravestone was now a pile of messy lines. Never has there been a Sky Yao that was humiliated in such a manner. Never. Pu Yao's bellow echoed in the sea of consciousness. The messy lines on the gravestone simultaneously lit up, countless black clouds sprouting out. In the blink of an eye, the black cloud roiled, brimming with killing intent. Suemo didn't know that he had forced the two guys in his sea of consciousness to ally together again. His gaze landed back on the female Xiao. The female Xiao's terrifying face covered in scabs didn't feel the least bit dark or terrifying in Suemo's eyes. He still didn't have too many clues about the history of the female Xiao. The only thing he could think of was that she was connected to the past that he could not remember. But this was just his guess. There was no evidence. His gaze unconsciously landed on the female Xiu's bare feet that were breathtakingly perfect. The first time he saw this pair of bare feet, he couldn't help but sigh with admiration. It wasn't that he hadn't seen the bare feel of other female Xiu. Xiaoguo's feet had also been very beautiful, round and adorable. But the female Xiu's pair of bare feet could only cause him to sigh with admiration. They were just too perfect, so perfect there was no flaw. It made an especially deep impression when such a perfect pair of bare feet appeared on a female Xiu that was as ugly as a clown. But no matter how wonderful the bare feet were, they were not as good as going to find talismans. Xuemo quickly moved aside his gaze to look at the corpses scattered in the surroundings. He instantly became excited. Taking spoils was a very wonderful matter, and to take from his enemies was even more wonderful. His first target was that soil disc that was enormously powerful. That thing was truly too strong. After personally experiencing the power of the 9-turn sky soil disc, Xuemo could not think of any talisman that could rival it. Of course, what he remembered most deeply was Pu Yao's exclamation of, at least 5th grade, possibly 6th grade. What kind of world was this? As he sighed, he smiled as he picked up the 9-turn sky soil talismans. His consciousness probed, and was almost ground to pieces by the dense earth mist inside. He hurriedly withdrew his consciousness. Yikes! It really was 6th grade. Ooh! He struck it rich. Really rich. Xuemo couldn't stop himself from dancing crazily. This time, it wasn't that he was someone who was not experienced. Right now, he did have some wealth, and a few 4th-grade talismans on his body. In all Ningmai Xiuzhe, he could be considered wealthy, but all the talismans and materials on his body added together could not compare with this 9-turn sky soil disc. If he took it out to sell, the jingsher would be enough to drown him. This kind of talisman was the kind that would be a sect treasure in any sect of Little Mountain Jie. How could Xuemo not be happy now that something like this had landed in his hands? After a while, he gradually calmed down, and studied it. He rejoiced in his good luck. The 9-turn sky soil talisman was very powerful, but it wasn't a talisman that Ningmai Xiuzhe could use. The expenditure of Ling power was too much. Lu Donghua had a cultivation of peak 2nd stratum Ningmai, and was just able to activate it. With Xuemo's 1st stratum cultivation, he couldn't even activate it. In the short term, he couldn't use this talisman. Should he sell it or keep it? Xuemo thought and kept it. It was easy to sell talismans of this level, but it wouldn't be easy to buy another one. He hadn't used a 6th-grade talisman before, but he was clear there was a chasm that was hard to cross between 5th and 6th grade. This 9-turn sky soil disc had been a 5th-grade talisman when it was first forced. After more than 400 years, and generations of people nurturing it, it finally birthed a thread of intelligence, and became a 6th-grade talisman. Carefully putting the 9-turn sky soil disc, he went back into his salvaging work. However, after seeing the 6th-grade 9-turn sky soil disc, Xuemo's eyes couldn't be lit up by any of the other spoils of victory. After a while, Xuemo shook his head. These 4 people clearly hadn't done so well in Clear Sky Sect. Other than the 9-turn sky soil disc, they didn't have anything good, and were worse than the first guy he had scalped. It seemed that the two were not of the same group, and clearly, the guy he had scalped was much richer than this group. The female Xiu did not stand after a long time. This caused Xuemo to have a bad feeling. He walked next to the female Xiu, and laid a hand on her shoulder to inspect her body. The inspection instantly made him jump. The strange purple power that always existed inside the body of the female Xiu was so faint it was hard to detect. Her body had lost the restraints of the purple light, and showed signs of collapsing. Xuemo instantly realized that it wasn't good, unhesitatingly put the female Xiu on his back and leaped into the air. At the same time, he expanded his consciousness. After flying for a while, he found a mountain cave. He hurriedly carried the female Xiao into the mountain cave. This was a normal cave that only had bats inside. When the two of them flew inside, they instantly alarmed the bats that flapped like a black cloud out of the cave. Xuemo cleaned out a patch of ground with a blow and carefully put down the female Xiao. He shoved a black processing meditation mat under the female Xiao. This move was visibly effective. Threads of Ling power burrowed into the body of the female Xiao and turned to purple light. After a while, the purple light inside the body of the female Xiao increased slightly in brightness. Xuemo saw the situation, and thought this wouldn't be over a matter of hours. After some thought, he set up a medium-sized primary replenishing formation around the female Xiao. It could continuously provide Ling power to the female Xiao. Xuemo found the purple light of the female Xiao was similar to the Mo matrix on his body and was not afraid of the impurities in Ling power. This allowed him to be daring in his actions. After guarding for a while, and the situation of the female Xiao had stabilized, Xuemo decided to leave. He needed to find Silly Bird. As more time passed, there was a lower possibility of finding Silly Bird. He left a jade scroll for the female Xiao telling her the direction he was going in. To prevent other people from disturbing her, he set down a circle of formations at the cave entrance. Illusory formations were locked and layered with killing formations. It wasn't just difficult to find, but if it was activated, it would cause a whole string of killing moves. Xuemo really invested a lot in creating it. The power of the killing formations he set down were very high. Under the interlocking killing moves, other than Xiuzhe at the peak of 3rd stratum Ningmai, normal Ningmai could not escape. Even Xiuzhe at Ningmai 3rd stratum would definitely be severely wounded if they didn't have some precious treasure or obscure method to shield themselves. Even though his heart hurt, but Xuemo still spent a large batch of valuable materials. After setting down the big formation, and re-examining it, he looked worriedly at the cave before flying away in the direction that the Clear Sky sect disciple he had stripped clean pointed in. After flying for more than half a day, he suddenly met a large group of Xiuzhe. You! The Xiuzhe at the front pointed at Xuemo and said without any politeness, "Come over." Xuemo saw the apparel of this person was similar to the previous Clear Sky sect disciples he encountered. His heart moved, and he moved forward, pretending to be timid and saying, Is there something I can help with? I still have something to do. Come over and follow." That Clear Sky sect disciple pointed at the group behind him and said impatiently. What? You aren't willing to help Clear Sky sect? The other Clear Sky sect disciples beside him looked with hostility at Xuemo. Xuemo rejoiced inside, putting a fearful expression on his face as he silently flew into the group. Chapter 271 Opportunities. Xuemo did not stand out in the group. A Ningmai 1st stratum Xiuzhe could just barely survive in Little Mountain Jie. Everyone was silent, but the Clear Sky sect disciples conversed freely. These days, no one cultivates 5-element spells. I heard that Lu Hui still hasn't responded, don't know where he ran off to. How is it possible to find a person that knows all 5-element spells so quickly? Lu Hui's brain has never been too bright. Qi Ji's method is best. We can find some more people to get all 5. Xuemo heard these people chat as though no one was around. A low voice spoke to him, Bro, what should we call you? Me. Xuemo pointed at himself, a face full of puzzlement. I see that this little brother's aura isn't ordinary and I desire to become acquainted with you. Sorry for the offense. The one who was speaking was a clever-faced middle-aged male. There were 7 or 8 people beside him. They looked to belong to the same group. Xuemo made up a fake name. I'm called Wang Hong, what should I call you? This one is Lu Gue. The middle-aged man bowed with folded hands, and probed, which side does Brother Wang live in? Suemo parried, all over. He then pursed his mouth, are these your brothers? Brother Wang has keen eyes. Lu Gui said with a smile. After this short conversation, he understood that he would not get anything out of Suemo, and stopped conversing further. The expressions of those beside him were stern and didn't seem to be in the mood to chat. It wasn't just them. All of the people in the surroundings had worried expressions. Suemo suddenly asked in a low voice, why is everyone so docile? He couldn't understand. There were just 3 Clear Sky sect disciples, and they were able to herd almost 20 Xianxia. Lu Gui was shocked inside. Just now, he had seen the person hide among the group with an expression of fear, but he had now asked something like this. He didn't seem to be a coward. He said without expression, there's nothing we can do. They are from Clear Sky sect. Suemo smiled and didn't respond. After a while, the more Lu Gui mused, the more he felt Suemo's words contained hidden meanings. Seeing Suemo maintain his silence, he couldn't resist and spoke in a small voice, what solution does Brother Wang have? Glancing at him, Suemo said with a smile, what solution can I have? Lu Gui increasingly felt this young person seemed high and unfathomable. Before, he appeared weak, but he looked calm now, and unworried. Lu Gui had met many people. He trusted his eyes. The presence exuded by this person didn't seem like an ordinary person. Was this a powerful Xianxia? He flipped through all the famous Xianxia that he knew, but didn't find anyone that was similar. Because he was too young. Brother Wang looks very young, Lu Gui couldn't help but probe. You look to be in your 20s, so young, yet you are Ningmai, your talent is truly outstanding. Suemo only smiled, and didn't say anything. However, what he didn't expect was that Lu Gui's words had stirred the attention of his fellows beside him. Usually, most of the people that broke through to Ningmai in their 20s were sect disciples. Men usually did not care much for their appearance. The price of eternal appearance Dan was not cheap. Very rarely would men spend that amount of jingsha. Consequently, it was hard to judge the ages of female Xiao, but it was possible to see hints with male Xiao. Suemo's face was easily a very youthful face. However, the attitude that unconsciously revealed itself on his face had a maturity that surpassed his age. This one is Xingzhong, their Xixiang, the leader introduced himself. His words instantly startled the other disciples. They all raised their heads and looked with bewilderment at Xixiang. Even Lu Gui had a shocked expression. In their experience, Xixiang rarely spoke. This time, he had proactively spoken. They couldn't help but look at Suemo. Nice to meet you, Brother Zheng. Suemo bowed with folded hands. He didn't dare to underestimate the other. His consciousness was abnormally sensitive. This Xingzhong had his eyes directed downwards, but he was a Ningmai third stratum expert. In Little Mountain Jia, Ningmai third stratum Xianxia were the top experts. Experts like these may not be able to oppose Clear Sky sect, but they definitely were not people that a few Clear Sky sect disciples could order about. Unless they had other aims. Suemo became wary. He didn't want to have uncontrolled factors influence his plan. He didn't care too much about the earthly treasures in the secret realm, but he was very worried about Silly Bird's safety. That idiot's intelligence was pitifully low. As a bird, she was arrogant and outrageous. It would be a wonder if she didn't get in trouble outside. Little brother's skill is not ordinary, this one is full of admiration. Xingzhong said seriously. The others instantly had shocked faces. They looked at Suemo like they were looking at a weirdo. Suemo felt slightly uneasy as he became the object of attention, and hurriedly said, Haha, what is Brother Zheng saying? This one is just a first stratum newbie, everyone, please take care of me. Xingzhong did not refute it, smiled and lowered his gaze. Suemo's hairs rose at Xingzhong's smile. He decided to stay a bit further away from this group in case trouble occurred. He was now sure that these people were after the secret realm. He didn't care about the secret realm, he only wanted them not to damage his plan. Xixiang, I cannot see where this person is outstanding, a shitty said though a secret language. They could communicate through a secret communication method that others were not able to detect. Lu Gui glanced over, and said through the secret communication method, I feel that this person's origins aren't simple. Look, he doesn't seem nervous at all. Zheng Zhong suddenly said, there's killing intent on his body. He has recently killed at least 4 or 5 people. The others shook in fright. No, no way, a person stammered out. Doesn't he just have first stratum cultivation? How can he kill 4 or 5 people at once? Disbelieving expressions came onto the faces of the other people. It was hard to imagine a first stratum Xiuzhe killing 4 people in succession in Little Mountain Jie. First stratum was the lowest level of power in Little Mountain Jie. In other words, every person that he killed wasn't weaker than he was. One person killing 4 people that were not any less weaker than he was, it was extremely difficult to do. Maybe he has a powerful talisman, one shitty said through the communication method. Don't cause trouble. Zheng Zhong said in a solemn tone. This person's strength isn't simple. Everyone, be careful. Suemo noticed these people occasionally glancing at him, and grimaced inside. Had he become a target of these people? That wasn't good. There were about 20 people in the group. Suemo suspected that these Clear Sky sect disciples had stopped every Xiuzhe they encountered. He could occasionally hear these people talking, but those Clear Sky sect disciples never controlled them. After flying for 2 hours, they encountered 2 more Clear Sky sect disciples. One Clear Sky sect disciple said, you guys are too slow. Huang Xixiang has been waiting for you, and also Lu Hui. We don't know where he ran off to, not taking care of business, he won't get a share this time. The Clear Sky sect disciple that had been hurting the group said, that's great. Maybe we can get a few more items each. The other people laughed. It seems you guys had a good harvest. Quick, Huang Xixiang has been waiting impatiently. Suomo's blood felt cold inside. These Clear Sky sect disciples really had great pageantry. It seemed that they really thought of Little Mountain Jie as their backyard. The group flew into a little mountain valley. The mountain valley was heavily guarded by Clear Sky sect disciples holding flying swords and talismans as though they were facing a great enemy. There were already about 20 or so Xiuzhe that had been gathered. Huang Zhuoguang stood proudly at a mountain peak, looking down at the Xiuzhe, and asked in a deep tone, have we found all the people that know 5 element spells? Huang Zhuoguang had narrow eyes and long eyebrows, his nose was high, his chin slightly narrow. He was wearing a bright yellow Ling armor, a deep red cape on his shoulders, a copper circle tying up his hair. His hands were wearing dark blue gloves, a pair of tiger head boots on his feet, he looked extremely grand and warrior-like. He was the most outstanding of the second-generation disciples of Clear Sky sect, and belonged to the most powerful branch. He himself was the most favored disciple of Clear Sky Old Forefather, and undoubtedly the leader of the Clear Sky sect disciples. We still lack someone skilled in water element spells, said a shimmy in a soft tone. She was wearing a goose-yellow palace robe, her eyes full of seductiveness. She said in puzzlement, Xixiang, why didn't we get the outer hall to assist us? Wouldn't that be more convenient? The outer hall. Huang Zhuoguang snorted coldly and said, that group of trash, they can't even defend Nanxing village, how can they be relied on to help us? Ah! The shimmy was very shocked. What happened with the outer sect? Someone dares to make enemies with our Clear Sky sect. Who cares who they are? Huang Zhuoguang narrowed his eyes, his voice was sharp and full of killing intent. Just kill them. After this affair, we'll go right back. Master had given the outer hall to Xiang. I hadn't thought this guy who fails so badly. Master is in seclusion, as his disciple, it is naturally up to me to help share the burden. Shimi looked with intoxicated eyes at Xixiao, feeling he was extremely magnificent. You there, which one of you knows water element spells? Someone shouted at Suomo's group. No one responded. A cold smirk floated at the corner of a clear sky sect disciple's mouth, and followed, those that know water element spells, stand up and help us. We'll give you a 4th grade flying sword as reward. He raised the flying sword in his hand. This flying sword's shape was very unique, like the fangs of a monster. Its body was made out of a material that was stark white. From 2 to 3 zhang away, it was still possible to feel the waves of killing intent clearly. Such a vicious weapon. Suomo was very shocked. This flying sword wasn't ordinary. Just the pure and keen killing intent was enough to make countless sword shio crazy. As expected, the crowd that had been motionless instantly exploded. I know. Me. Instantly, 7 or 8 hands rose up. Suomo also raised his hand. He wanted to see what this group really wanted to do. He noticed that Jingzhong also raised his hand. He secretly glanced around him, trying to match the information he got from Lu Hui's mouth to the clear sky sect disciples he could see. His gaze quickly landed on the bright figure that was on a little mountain peak. The hero of clear sky, Huang Zhuoguang. Chapter 272 Huang Zhuoguang Clear Sky Sect had many branches and many second-generation disciples, but no one could shake Huang Zhuoguang's position. Besides the support of Clear Sky Old Forefather, Huang Zhuoguang's strong individual strength was the most crucial factor. Before the change in Little Mountain Jia, Huang Zhuoguang had been labeled the most accomplished of the younger generation in Little Mountain Jia. The name of the Clear Sky hero had spread from that time forward. He entered Ningmai at 16. At this age, many people had just started Juji. At 17, he comprehended sword essence and quickly became the brightest name among the Little Mountain Jia younger generation. What truly pushed his fame to the peak was what happened during the calamity. At that time, the situation had been chaotic. Many people had attacked Clear Sky Sect. At that crucial time, Huang Zhuoguang stood out, killing 20 people with his sword. The row of bloody heads were hung at the gate of Clear Sky Sect. This action instantly shocked those Xiozha that during the chaos and allowed the sect to hold out until Clear Sky Old Forefather returned. It had to be said that half of the reason that Clear Sky Sect held its current position in Little Mountain Jia could be attributed to Huang Zhuoguang. That battle had let his brutal reputation spread throughout Little Mountain Jia, and firmly established his position as second in the sect under the Old Forefather. Huang Zhuoguang was brutal and domineering, but he did not lack cleverness. The other disciples were filled with respect and fear towards him. Since so many people had raised their hands, a competition was naturally required. However, what was being tested wasn't individual power, but who had the strongest skill in water element spells. The Xiozha that raised their hands were asked to cast a water element spell. This wasn't a problem to Zuomo at all. He casted the little art of cloud and rain, and a miniature white cloud floated 1 chi above his palm as it started to rain. As the drops landed on Zuomo's palm, they disappeared. This pure and skilled water element spell instantly defeated the great majority. Zuomo was slightly surprised by Jingzhong. Jingzhong did not speak, and lightly tapped a jade card hanging on his waist. A blue water dragon instantly came out. The water dragon was about 1 chi long, the blue scales on its body flashing with an enchanting light. It was extremely smart, a pair of dragon eyes curiously scanning the surroundings. A beast service card. Zuomo was slightly shocked. He didn't know what kind of dragon this water dragon was. Maybe Qingshidi would recognize it. Without a doubt, the grade of this water dragon whatever its kind would not be low. As the blue water dragon flew out, Suemo instantly felt that the water element power in the air thickened. The water dragon innately belonged to water. It was most skilled in water element spells. The disciple holding the white Fang sword had a dilemma. Suemo might have cast a little spell, but it could be seen with a glance that his skill was not low. Zhengzhong's water dragon was a natural expert at control of water. Both of you come up. Huang Zhuoguang's voice sounded at this time. Suemo's heart jumped. Huang Zhuoguang's voice was not loud, but it held an unique kind of pressure. He could be considered to be experienced now, but it was the first time he encountered an expert of Huang Zhuoguang's style. The only one Suemo felt was slightly similar was Changheng. However, there was a difference between the two. Huang Zhuoguang was dominating, and Changheng was vicious. If these two people fought, that would definitely be very spectacular, Suemo muttered inside. He noticed a Xiuzhe with a pale complexion in the corner. That was Lei Hao, the person Lu Hui said had been wounded by Silly Bird. Lei Hao was Suemo's target. The two followed behind the disciple with the white Fang sword. Huang Zhuoguang flew down from the mountain peak, and said to the shimmy beside him, "Tell them to prepare to start." The other people were herded away from this area. Go, go, none of your business here. In 5 minutes, whoever remains within 50 li cannot blame my flying sword, a Clear Sky sect disciple said maliciously. A change suddenly occurred. A sword light like a smear of snowy light suddenly shot towards Huang Zhuoguang. Many Clear Sky sect disciples paled. That sword light had been too sudden. The snowy and bright sword energy blinded them. The sharp sword essence was like countless shards of sharp snowflakes dancing. The shimmy beside Huang Zhuoguang paled. This bit of snowy and bright sword light filled every corner of her vision. Everything was white. In the blink of an eye, the sharp sword essence stole away her urge to resist. An extremely domineering sword light suddenly lit up. Ha ha! I just knew that there was a problem with you. Huang Zhuoguang laughed, and then his expression became cold. But to scheme against me, you aren't enough. In his tone, a strong confidence was expressed. Zhengzhong's fellows moved at the same time, sword energies crisscrossing. These Clear Sky sect disciples did not have Huang Zhuoguang's strength, and the situation instantly became chaotic. The wails and panic of the Clear Sky sect disciples didn't cause Huang Zhuoguang to move away his eyes. He locked tightly onto Zhengzhong and smirked, "Oh, so it is a third stratum. No wonder you are so gutsy." Zhengzhong's eyes were not lowered and half-lidded as previous. In his calm eyes, killing and battle intent flashed. Huang Zhuoguang smiled, "Let's go up." Finishing, he flew into the air. Zhengzhong did not hesitate in following him into the sky. Suemo looked right and left. No one was paying attention to him. Instantly, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, this was actually suitable for him to carry out his own affairs. He noticed Lei Hao panicking and wanting to flee. The Xiuzhe that had been captured were already filled with hate towards Clear Sky sect, but due to Clear Sky sect's might, no one dared to speak up. At this time, as Zhengzhong moved, and the situation was chaotic, Lu Gui fanned the flames, deliberately shouting, "Flying sword! That flying sword! Don't let him escape!" Once those words came out, it stirred the hearts of many people. That flying sword had such pure killing intent. It definitely was a rare top of the 4th grade sword. Who dares? Wanting to steal something from Clear Sky sect. You don't want to live, the disciple shouted with a stern expression. Lu Hui hid among the crowd and grumbled, "The daring die from overeating, the cowards die from starvation." Who knows who? Everyone thought. Yes, such a chaotic situation, they wouldn't know who stole it. Which Xiuzhe that had survived in Little Mountain Jia up until now was a friendly person? In a moment, Dozens of sword lights howled as they shot towards that clear sky sect disciple. Mo, who had flown away, was also scared by the scene. He celebrated that he had left early enough. Otherwise, he would have also been affected. That disciple was both frightened and angry. Before he could finish speaking, he was chopped by tens of sword energies into pieces of meat, and froze Mo's heart. Everyone instantly went to grab the sword. After a period of chaos, a Xianxia with good eyes and fast hands grabbed the flying sword before turning and running for his life. The Xianxia that didn't get the flying swords didn't let go of the other things on this disciple's body. The Xianxia that didn't get anything quickly moved their red eyes towards the other Clear Sky Sect disciples. They suddenly found that after losing the halo of Clear Sky Sect, these disciples were the best fat sheep. The situation became even more chaotic. After a few dashes, Mo flashed next to Lei Hao and grabbed him as he was fleeing. Lei Hao was frightened half to death, his entire body shaking, his words nonsense. I give you everything. Mo furrowed his brow, and raised his hand to slap him a few times to restore him to clarity. I'll ask and you answer. You, please ask. Lei Hao was stunned from the blows, and recovered from his soulless state. Even though he was still frightened, but he could manage to speak. Mo's hand suddenly flashed, his left hand casting a young fiendish hard lightning. Hiss! It directly hit a flying sword. With a burst of blue smoke, and a clanging sound, the flying sword landed on the ground. A sword Xiao nearby gave a grunt. His flying sword ruined, his consciousness was also wounded. He looked in terror at Mo, and stumbled as he turned to flee, not even daring to pick up his flying sword. Mo didn't pursue him. This scene had been seen by many people. The Xianxia that had been charging towards Mo all turned in fright and went towards other targets. Lei Hao, who was hanging from Mo's hand, swallowed in terror. Heavens, how had he landed in the hands of such an expert? What is with the wounds on your body? Mo asked word by word as he stared at Lei Hao. Lei Hao felt his hairs raise at Mo's gaze. The pale face became even more white. He stammered, I encountered something gray. I thought it was a treasure and wanted to catch it. But that thing was very strange. When I touched it, I was wounded. A burst of joy came into Mo's heart. He had just inspected the wounds inside Lei Hao's body. His body had truly been harmed by a power not inside the 5 elements. Where did the gray shadow go after? Mo asked. It flew into the secret realm, Lei Hao obediently responded. Isn't the entrance to the secret realm closed? How could it fly in? I don't know. Mo suddenly thought of how the entrance to the secret realm required 5 of the 5 element spells to open and of Silly Bird's present attribute of not being within the 5 elements. That was a possibility. Where is the entrance to the secret realm? Mo asked a last question. Over there. Lei Hao pointed to a mountain valley nearby. Mo snickered at him. You answered well. As he finished, he raised his hand and threw Lei Hao back into the chaotic battlefield. Instantly, the people converged on him. Mo looked at the 2 people fighting in the air, and regretted that the time wasn't right. If it wasn't that he was in a hurry to find Silly Bird, he would definitely take the chance to kill Huang Zhuoguang. Huang Zhuoguang was the 2nd-ranked expert of Clear Sky Sect. If he could be killed, it would greatly weaken Clear Sky Sect. He suddenly found that he had underestimated the strength of Clear Sky Sect. Huang Zhuoguang was very powerful. Zheng Zhong had Ningmai 3rd stratum cultivation, but he was at the disadvantage. This shocked Mo. Seeing Huang Zhuoguang's sword essence, Mo suddenly understood a bit. The sky in Clear Sky Sect wasn't all to do with the sky soil, but with the sky itself. It was the sword of the sky. The sword essence was vast and intangible. There was clearly nothing, but it made one feel that it could not be stopped. Huang Zhuoguang's sword became even brighter with a hint of sunlight-like warmth. No matter if it was the sword energy or his movement, when in the air Huang Zhuoguang was like a fish in water. Zhuo Mo's consciousness was exceptional. He had a feeling that Huang Zhuoguang's flying sword had a kind of unspeakable connection to the sky. He was astounded. How was it possible? Did this person start cultivating when he was inside his mother? In this moment, Zhuo Mo decided to kill the other. If he missed this chance, it would almost be impossible to get a chance to kill him in the future. An ingenious idea came to mind. Chapter 273, The Critical Sword Point. Huang Zhuoguang stood in the air. Zheng Zhong's cool eyes unconsciously showed hints of terror. He had been fooled. The dominance on Huang Zhuoguang's face had long disappeared, his eyes scornful. The brutality and dominance was just his disguise. Zheng Zhong realized that he had been tricked. From the start, he thought that Huang Zhuoguang walked the path of domination and strength. At this time, he discovered he was completely wrong. The sword of the sky was ethereal, empty and vast, invisible and intangible. His sword essence was extremely strange. Zheng Zhong had never seen it before. What was most scary was that the entire sky seemed to have become his support. Meeting Huang Zhuoguang's eyes that were as cold and deep as the blue sky, the battle spirit in Zheng Zhong's heart was unconsciously weakened. Zheng Zhong was skilled in fighting. His cultivation was also slightly higher than Huang Zhuoguang and he had instantly detected it. However, he wasn't willing to escape like this. He could see the situation below. He knew that if he could keep stalling for a while, he could rely on his shitty to come help him. No matter how difficult Huang Zhuoguang's sword essence was to handle, or how many transformations his sword moves had, he believed if he and his shitty worked together, they could kill the other. At this point, Zheng Zhong was already defeated, but his goal was very clear. He wasn't attempting to defeat Huang Zhuoguang but to get the secret realm. Therefore, he was dragging the battle out. Your shitty have all been killed, Zheng Zhong suddenly said. Huang Zhuoguang smiled unconcernedly and said, who cares if the trash die? There was none of the dominance and overbearing presence on his face. His eyes were cold and composed. Zheng Zhong's heart felt a chill. This was a vicious and emotionless person. He said, why don't you run? Run. Huang Zhuoguang seemed to have heard a great joke. Why should I run? I know you are stalling and waiting for your shitty to come help you. There wasn't any panic in Huang Zhuoguang's voice. His mouth curved, his eyes slowly narrowing. It is a pity that you do not know that the difference in our power isn't something that can be made up by quantity. Zheng Zhong was slightly shocked. The confidence in Huang Zhuoguang's voice wasn't a pretense, but he was still puzzled. He was at a disadvantage, but the difference in their strengths wasn't as large as Huang Zhuoguang stated. Unless Huang Zhuoguang had hidden his strength? Zheng Zhong's heart suddenly jumped. Zhuo Mo was very quick. Like a bolt of lightning, he reached the entrance to the secret realm. The entrance was inside a cave. Outside the cave, it was already chaotic, the sword energies were flying, everywhere and multicolored talismans flashing about. The Ling power inside the little valley was a total mess. When Lu Gui and the others saw Zhuo Mo, their faces changed slightly. Xixiang had told them not to provoke this person. They had also seen Zhuo Mo's young fiendish hard lightning with their own eyes, and were wary. Seeing Zhuo Mo coming to the secret realm, they instantly knew it wasn't good. 7 of them had been hiding in the chaotic crowd. They were also very careful, and had earned a significant amount. However, this amount of gains could not compare to a secret realm that had never been explored. Zhuo Mo had already noticed Lu Gui and the others by the secret realm's entrance. Seeing the wariness on their faces, he knew if he proposed his plan, the others probably wouldn't believe him. Making a decision, Mo did not hesitate and took out the serene water sword. Inhaling deeply, he stepped hard on the ground and jumped. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he charged up 7 dozen zhang. At the highest point, he suddenly crouched and hugged his knees, flipping forward. However, he only performed a half flip. When his head was pointing downwards, the legs that were curved upwards suddenly pushed off the empty space above him. Bam! It was like there was an invisible wall above him, his legs pushing on it, he blasted off. All the Ling power in Mo's body moved at that instant. His body stretching out, it was a straight line from the tip of the sword to his heels. His entire person had transformed into a flying sword. A sharp howl suddenly sounded, muffling over every other sound in the valley. Everyone jumped and unconsciously stopped what they were doing. When they raised their heads to look up, it was as though they were struck by lightning. It was possible to see a figure blurred by shuttle-shaped air ripples. The air inside the entire valley started to tremble, the fierce convulsions of the air rippled towards the ground. The ground shook like trembling dice. Mo had completely forgotten everything at this point. The booming of air beside his ears causing him to be unable to hear anything. The pleasure of extreme speed caused the temperature of his blood to increase exponentially. Uncontrollably, he gave a long howl. Accelerate, accelerate, accelerate more. He seemed to exercise all his Ling power and strength in this short 100 zhang. The furious air turbulence exploded around him, the temperature also rising. He thought of the meteor void fire in the past. In the beginning, he had named it, diving from the sky. Later, he had learned that the name of this move was called meteor void fire, a very famous move of Diana Xiu. However, Zhongru had tried many times, but could not create void fire. Mo found something unique. The air turbulence around him would not scatter during his charge. When his speed reached a certain level, he could tear apart the turbulence created from air, and create a certain kind of suction. This suction would cause the turbulence to stay close to his body, and form a turbulent area. The void fire was birthed in this turbulent area. Like when two hard pieces of rock collided together, it would create sparks. This turbulent area was like an area of rock made out of pieces of stone moving against each other high speed, so sparks naturally formed. Mo's consciousness was like many tiny tentacles, accurately stirring the turbulence. Hiss crack. A thread of fire shot out of the turbulence around his body. Quickly, the area of turbulence lit up around Mo's body was like wood soaked in turpentine. More than 10 threads of fire snaked their way around Mo's body. But immediately after, Mo felt an unexpected change happen. These fire snakes seemed to have smelt blood, all of them flooding towards the sword tip of the flying sword. The sword tip was like a powerful whirlpool, continuously consuming flames. In the blink of an eye, all the fire around Mo was absorbed into the sword tip. At this time, the sword tip was burning bright with a blinding red light. In the eyes of everyone in the valley, there was a burning red light with astounding speed drawing out a bold straight line across their vision. All of the sword essence, all of the void fire was compressed in the needle-sized area of the sword tip. Everyone was shaking in fright. Motherfucker! Run! It wasn't clear who first said it, but the group suddenly woke up. Instantly, wails rose. They hated that their parents hadn't birthed them with another pair of legs. Stumbling and crawling, they sprinted towards the sides of the valley. In the blink of an eye, the entrance that had been blocked was cleared. Lu Gui and the others all changed expressions. When Xixiang reminded them not to provoke the person, they had not been concerned. Even when they were wary of Mo's young fiendish hard lightning bolt, but that was just wariness. Until this sword appeared, this sword that compressed all the sword essence and explosiveness to the extreme. They truly felt respect and terror. None of the 7 people dared to go stop this blow. They stood at their spot like wooden puppets, their faces raised, their mouths open as they looked dazedly at the blinding light. What weirdo was this? Their perception was better than average. The dot of red light that was compressed to the limits made them instinctively feel a suffocating sense of danger. The Ling power and air turbulence that had been created by the fights inside the valley were now like wild horses that had been broken and simultaneously calmed down. The shaking ground seemed to also have detected the danger and became silent. Other than the panicking people that were feeling, everything else in the mountain valley seemed to freeze at this moment. They seemed to be waiting for the conqueror to arrive. Light flashed in Huang Zhuoguang and Jing Zhong's eyes. In the sky near them, a blinding red light was at the front of a diving figure. That dot of red light made both of them change expression. A strange light flashed across Huang Zhuoguang's face. He noticed the nervousness on Jing Zhong's face. His mind moved, and purposefully said, this person isn't weak. Is he fighting against your shitty? Huang Zhuoguang's words were exactly what Jing Zhong was worried about. However, he trusted that his shitty would not be so impulsive and shot back, no matter. If he gets the secret realm, it's better than you getting the secret realm. You have animosity towards me. Huang Zhuoguang narrowed his eyes again. Animosity? Jing Zhong laughed coldly. Is there anyone still alive in Little Mountain Jia that doesn't have animosity against you? That's true, Huang Zhuoguang nodded. The world is like this. If you are angry, be angry that your luck isn't good. Sui Mo, who had made such a ruckus and stopped the crowds, didn't have any smugness on his face. Wrapped in the turbulence, his face was as pale as paper, his eyes terrified, his heart at his throat. These was only one thought left in his mind. He really had played a terrible hand. Serene Water Sword was a water element flying sword. He was used to the Li Water Sword scripture, and had picked this water element flying sword. Serene Water Sword was a good flying sword, its entire body made from serene water, and pure in water element power. But damn it! The pure water element power became the most crucial threat. There was no problem in compressing the Li Water Sword essence, but Suemo had not expected that the compressed sword essence would create a strong suction and absorb the void fire, thereby also compressing it at the sword tip. Now, the problem was huge. Void fire was an extremely volatile flame, and a flame that Suemo was extremely unfamiliar with. Water and fire could not merge in the first place. As the void fire entered the serene water sword, the only outcome he could think of was an explosion. Even more, the void fire inside the serene water sword had been compressed to its limits. Motherfucker. Even if this thing wasn't inside the serene water sword, even if it was just a drop of water, there was only one outcome. Boom, a loud sound, and no bones would be left remaining in a radius of 30 zhang. Right now, there was something else that was also dangerous, the sword essence that had been highly compressed. The addition of the sword essence had kept the 3 factors in an exquisite equilibrium, but it was very unstable. In other words, if Suemo let go, the flying sword would instantly explode. Adding on the sword essence that was compressed. If this exploded, then an area 50 zhang in radius, oh no, 80 zhang in radius, not a hair would remain. Looking at the ground that was coming increasingly close to him, Suemo's face paled, his hand trembling, crying without tears. Save me. Chapter 274, You eat meat, will drink soup, what do I do, what do I do? Suemo was so panicked his innards were burning up. What presence, what scheme, all of it was thrown away. The howling suddenly changed in tune, from being full of killing intent to being like a rooster that was clucking as it was being strangled, with a long afternote. The sword and person that had been burning suddenly paused, their speed decreasing. After a while, They were like a little bird that was too fat and couldn't fly as they swayed and unsteadily landed on the empty ground beside the cave. Everyone collectively turned to stone as they watched such a strange scene. Suemo released a breath. The serene water sword tip was still bright red, but it was evidently not as frightening as before. Right now, he wanted to throw this flying sword as far away as possible, but considering that the flying sword would instantly explode if it left his control, he could only keep a tight grip on it. The mountain valley was deathly silent, everyone looking dazedly at Suemo. Had it been an illusion? Was this person bouncing about in front of them really the same person that was so peerless just a moment ago? This change was too comedic. Because it was so sudden, and the difference too large, it caused everyone to be unable to react. This group of people stared straight at Suemo, none of them fighting. Dissipate, dissipate. Suemo recited at the serene water sword. His voice was very light, but since the surroundings were too quiet, it was abnormally clear. When everyone heard it, many people wanted to roll their eyes. The mood instantly became awkward. Everyone looked at each other but no one moved. The mountain valley that had been so noisy and full of fighting was abnormally peaceful and silent. The void fire and sword essence that lost pressure quickly dissipated. After a while, the burning red tip of the serene water sword also dissipated. The serene water tip also resumed its normal appearance. Suemo's heart finally landed back in his stomach. He felt his body relax and he sat down on the ground. So risky. He had almost tripped up. If he killed himself, wouldn't it be a great joke? He was full of regret as he panted. After 2 breaths, he suddenly froze. It wasn't right. Why were the surroundings so silent? He turned around, his heart slightly insecure, and saw a circle of people standing there silently as they looked at him. A hair-raising feeling spread. He almost shrieked. However, he finally remembered he could be considered the leader of a large group of people, swallowed, and stood up. Why aren't you fighting? No one spoke. Lu Gui didn't know what to say. The chaotic situation they had put so much effort to create had been interrupted with such a strange method. But they didn't dare jump out at this time. This wasn't a joke. The slightly black guy in front of him was clearly stronger than they were by a large margin, and was extremely terrifying. They didn't know what problems Suemo just had, but his power was displayed right there. Without knowing his intentions, jumping out was akin to trying to seeking death. The other people's thoughts were very similar to Lu Gui. Suemo's half of a move had frightened everyone. Suemo saw that no one responded to him, and instantly faltered. He turned to face the entrance of the secret realm. Without a call, these people flooded forward. Suemo turned in fright. What are you doing? A voice suddenly sounded among the crowd. Big bro, you eat the meat, but let us drink some soup. Yes, yes. Big bro, you pick what's good first, and let us get some benefits. Calls like this instantly sounded among the crowd. Suemo was dumbstruck. Lu Gui and the others were dumbstruck. No one had expected the situation would reach such a strange step. You bear to part with that? Suemo said thoughtlessly. Big bro is joking. You are the strongest, it's right that you pick first. The person who spoke first saw that Suemo wasn't a hard person to interact with. His courage rose and he stood out. Right. That's the rationale. Every person agreed. Lu Gui and the others didn't dare to speak. Other people might not know what they had just done, but this person of mysterious origins knew. If they stepped forward at this time and the other might reveal what they had just done, and they would be sliced to death. Suemo gradually calmed down, and said with slight amusement, you guys trust me this much? Big bro, you didn't even look at the white fang sword just now. How can anything normal enter your eyes? The man was a smart one. As to better things, we don't dare to think about it. That's right, Who dares to be greedy and covets big bro's things, everyone will chop him. Chop him. The people all agreed. Lu Gui shook with fright. These people were all very experienced old-timers. They knew that they, a random bunch of rabble, could not possibly get anything out of the secret realm. Suo Mo's heart was slightly insecure. He liked the white fang sword too, but he had been thinking of the grey bird then and didn't have the time. Gu really hadn't disregarded it. However, he quickly understood what these people were thinking. Before, he had only thought of tripping up Huang Zhuoguang. The present situation was way out of his predictions. However, he responded quickly. If that's the case, then let us work together to kill Huang Zhuoguang first. If we don't kill him, this secret realm won't be ours. As Suo Mo said this, many people instantly hesitated. They were only pursuing wealth, but didn't want to lose their lives. The vicious reputation of Huang Zhuoguang had long been engraved in their hearts. The man who had just spoken said, "What are we afraid of? If Huang Zhuoguang escapes, who among us will be able to escape the consequences in and being connected to the deaths of the Sky Sect disciples?" Suo Mo silently praised the person for his cleverness. As expected, the people that had hesitated instantly started to shout, "Do it! We have this many people, we can slice him to death with one blow from each of us." Suo Mo threw out at a good time, "There's some good talismans on Huang Zhuoguang's body. Afterwards, it will depend on who has the best luck." These words were instantly effective. Nothing was more tempting than talismans. Their courage instantly rose. Lu Gui and a few people were joyous upon hearing this. If this expert of mysterious skill could team up with Xixiang, Huang Zhuoguang would have a hard time escaping. "Big bro, say what to do, and we'll do it." Lu Gui hurriedly shouted. Suo Mo suddenly found the situation was better than he had imagined. With this group of people, he could more easily set it up. Even though it wasn't possible to rely on them to do something difficult, but not all things were difficult. As he continued to issue out orders, the people that received them were filled with puzzlement. They could not understand at all what use the things Suo Mo was asking them to do had. Suo Mo requested for most of them to continuously release sword energies and spells inside the valley. Even though their faces were filled with puzzlement, but they still followed and released spells and sword energies at empty areas. The entire mountain valley became filled with all kinds of colored light. Suo Mo stood at the entrance to the secret realm. The secret realm entrance was a floating ball of light. Looking at the entrance, his grasp of the situation rose. This entrance was a natural 5-element formation. It wasn't hard to open, but it required using all 5-element powers at the same time. He looked at Lu Gui. Seeing Lu Gui nod, he started to rapidly send 5-element power towards the entrance. As the 5-element spells entered the ball of light, 5-colored light exploded. In the sky, Huang Zhuoguang's expression changed, killing intent filled in his eyes. His figure suddenly disappeared. This group of damned bastards. The reason he had been so confident before was largely due to his assumption that this group could not open the entrance. He had observed the entrance to the secret realm. It required putting in 5 kinds of 5-element spells at the same time. It was easy to find people that were skilled in one element or several, but it was rare to find those shouja skilled in all 5. Finding 5 shouja to cast spells at the same time was an action he had resorted to out of helplessness. He knew that in reality, this method couldn't open the entrance to the secret realm completely. He didn't worry at all. No matter how many shouja possessed the entrance, if the entrance wasn't opened, then this secret realm would belong to Clear Sky Sect, no one could take it away. So when the light flashed as the entrance was opened, he was both terrified and furious. His figure flashed into the mountain valley, aiming for Suo Mo. The other shouja were a school of little fish in his eyes. The reality was just as he thought. When he appeared in the mountain valley, the Xianxia flew into the sky like a group of alarmed birds. Huang Zhuoguang instantly saw Zuo in front of the entrance. My eyes had failed me. So you are skilled in all 5 elements. A cold light flashed in Huang Zhuoguang's eyes. I hadn't thought I would encounter another expert today. Such good luck. Madman. Zuo rolled his eyes. Look at the time. He was still rambling. Without his hesitation, he raised his hand for a young fiendish hard lightning bolt. Young fiendish hard lightning was the move of little thousand-leaf hands that he was most familiar with. At present, he almost didn't have to think and could cast it. Hard lightning. Huang Zhuoguang was slightly surprised, but he was not shocked. Just this thing, and you dare to attack me? Zuo suddenly sent out a bolt of young fiendish hard lightning with his right palm. With a hiss, it seemed to strike something invisible. Huang Zhuoguang finally had a shocked expression. How was it possible? How could this guy so easily find his sword energy? His clear sky sword energy was invisible and intangible, extremely hard to detect. Zuo didn't feel anything. Speaking of invisibility and intangibility, there probably was no sword energy that could compare to the void sword scripture that Wei Xingxiang cultivated. While Huang Zhuoguang's sky sword essence was also invisible and intangible, but these qualities were not outstanding. The reason that people continuously were defeated by Huang Zhuoguang was that his sword essence was too ethereal and hard to find, but Zuo had an exceptional consciousness and Ling eyes, so these qualities were not scary. At this time, Zheng Zhong also appeared behind Huang Zhuoguang. Lu Gui and the other 6 appeared at same time, the 8 people forming a complete circle. Zuo reversed and retreated. A smirk appeared at the corner of Huang Zhuoguang's mouth. Gang fighting? What they probably didn't know was that he was the least afraid of gang fighting. The more people there were, the more power his sword scripture could release. Stupid. He decided to let these ignorant people see just how wrong they were. Just as he was going to attack, the smirk at his mouth suddenly froze. Chapter 275 Circle Kill. When Huang Zhuoguang suddenly appeared, the space surrounding him became chaotic. Countless Ling power flows, countless air turbulence flows. The small mountain valley was like an area of turbulence. What was most terrible was, he didn't need to raise his head to know that his connection with the sky had been cut off. In a flash, he realized, a trap. This was a trap that had been prepared for him. The Ling power of the mountain valley randomly flew and collided in an unstable state. Some scenes that he had disregarded before flowed through his mind. Coldness rose through his heart. The group of Xianxia that had panicked and rose when he entered the mountain valley had looked like a group of birds startled by an angle, so helpless, so weak, so alarmed. But now, he realized that this group of pitifully weak people had used Ling power and turbulence to create a net above the mountain valley without him noticing, a net blocking him from the sky. He was separated from the sky. Such a poisonous trap. Some admiration rose. This group seemed like a rabble, and was low on battle capabilities. It really was admirable that the other could think of such a great idea, and execute it effectively. His gaze landed on Zuo, who was guarding the entrance to the secret realm, so this person was actually the most powerful of the bunch. Huang Zhuoguang's eyes narrowed for the second time. Facing a predicament, after the initial shock, he wasn't afraid. Quite the opposite. His desire for battle was instantly ignited. He felt the temperature of his body continuously increase. There never had been someone that could force him to such a predicament. To such a sorry state. Without the sky, you dare to challenge me? Huang Zhuoguang's eyes brightened, the flying sword in his hand suddenly sweeping up. A strong presence expanded. The fine turbulence around him instantly cleared. Zheng Zhong and the others did not hesitate in stepping forward. This was also the reason Zuo had retreated. Zheng and his group could work together. If he was in the middle, he would actually disrupt their cooperative battle capabilities. It was better to withdraw and wait for an opportunity. The area of the mountain valley was narrow and small. In this kind of battle, what people competed on were their reaction times, little techniques, and talismans. Huang Zhuoguang had never experienced this kind of battle before, but he did not fear it. His body was entirely covered in 4th-grade talismans. The Ling armor on his body was a 4th-grade earth element Ling armor, one of the finest pieces produced by Clear Sky sect, called Dusty Sky Ling armor. It was made from sky soil. Out of affection for him, Clear Sky old forefather had added 3 grains of sky sand into it. This caused the grade of the Ling armor to increase greatly, especially its formations. Clear Sky old forefather even used the 9-turn sky soil disc to copy formations that gave it the ability to defend and attack enemies. There was a layer of sand mist that continuously wrapped around Huang Zhuoguang's body. One shouldn't underestimate these sand mists. They could easily break 2nd-grade flying swords, and the most damaging ability was that it could always corrode the other. Dusty Sky Ling armor was definitely a great weapon for close combat. People usually could not see his flying sword because it would always be hidden in the sky. The flying sword forged from the essence of Cloud Soul, Sky Inquirer, was like an invisible flow of water silently spinning above Huang Zhuoguang's head. Even the jade pendant on his body and the hair tie were also not ordinary, all high-level items. Zheng and the others instantly looked much poorer when compared to him. Other than the silver snowy flying sword in Zheng hand that was low 4th grade, all that the other people had were 3rd grade. Suemo had to shake his head on the inside. It seemed that they didn't have an easy time surviving. 4th-grade talismans were extremely expensive. For example, Suemo's thunder flowing light wings were intermediate 4th grade, and cost him 60 pieces of 4th-grade jingsha. It had to be said that one piece of 4th-grade jingsha was equivalent to 500 pieces of 3rd-grade jingsha. In other words, this talisman required 30,000 pieces of 3rd-grade jingsha. This price was not something that normal people could tolerate. Suemo had won many things in Little Mountain Jia, enough talismans to make a small mountain, but the number of 4th-grade talismans could be counted on his fingers. In the present Little Mountain Jia, 3rd-grade talismans were the mainstream armaments. 4th-grade talismans were all on the hands of the experts. As to talismans like the 9-turn sky soil disc, even if you had one, you didn't dare to use it. Of the many talismans, 4th-grade flying swords were the rarest, and the most welcome. There was no way about it, Little Mountain Jia's xiuzha were mostly sword xiu. Suemo unconsciously inventoried his own wealth and found to his surprise that he had some assets. But things like the thunder-flowing light wings, 7-star sword boots, they were mostly things that he bought using jingsha he earned from selling Golden Crow fire. Seeing the difference in talismans between the two sides, Suemo knew it would not be an easy fight. The reason the price between 4th-grade and 3rd-grade talismans was so large was that, other than the materials being rarer and the abilities more outstanding, there was another area, formations. 4th-grade talismans frequently would have their own formation techniques. The sand mist that the Dusty Sky Ling armor exuded was a formation combat technique called Mist Kill. The formation combat technique of Suemo's 7-star sword boots were more unique. That was a sword formation. The majority of 4th-grade talismans had formation combat techniques, it was rare that they did not have them, like the thunder-flowing light wings. This kind of talismans that did not have formation combat techniques were able to qualify to 4th grade due to one reason. It was that one of its attributes was too strong, like the speed of the thunder-flowing light wings. A good talisman in the hands of a novice was just a pile of scrap metal, but in the hands of an expert, it could be wielded to its greatest potential. And if an expert was covered in good talismans? Suemo started to have a headache. The situation kept on changing unexpectedly. At the start, his plan hadn't changed very much. He had planned on using little thousand-leaf hands to mess up the turbulence even more. He hadn't expected these people to be willing to listen to him. The plan had been even more perfect. But now he found, no matter how much they planned, Huang Zhuoguang was not suppressed like he had imagined. Huang Zhuoguang did not fear being surrounded and attacked. The formation combat technique of his Ling armor, missed kill, at full power, his entire person seemed like a person-shaped meat grinder, unreasonably charging and smashing about. The double tiger-eye boots on his feet were not average. Each time he stepped on the ground, the earth trembled. It had the same abilities as Zhuomo's 10,000 appearances gloves. If the other showed the slightest weakness, the flying sword above his head would suddenly strike. If it wasn't for the fact that Zheng Zhong and his fellows cooperated well, many of them would already have been killed. As Huang Zhuoguang became familiar with this kind of combat, he responded with greater ease. His feet suddenly shoving off, he was like a cannonball shot out of a cannon, smashing towards Lu Gui with astonishing speed. Lu Gui was very shocked, the flying sword stabbing multiple times in front of him, and a sword curtain appeared in front. But he suddenly tapped the ground on the way, his figure changing directions and leapt at someone else. That person had been trying to go up to help Lu Gui, and didn't expect Huang Zhuoguang to suddenly turn around. He didn't have the time to respond, and Huang Zhuoguang had charged in front of him. Terror rose in his eyes. Just as he was about to be ground by the sand mist, a snow sword light stabbed at Huang Zhuoguang. Zheng Zhong's attack was perfectly timed. Huang Zhuoguang was still very wary of Zheng Zhong. He swerved and flashed past the sword light. Before Zheng Zhong could sigh in relief, a spark suddenly appeared above the Shitty's head, a flying sword flashing and disappearing. Huang Zhuoguang's gaze suddenly landed on Zhuomo's body. He hadn't expected Zhuomo was able to detect his well-concealed attack. Zhuomo shook his head as he kept on watching. This cooperation between this group was much worse than Lil Miss groups. It was far less than what he predicted. Out of helplessness, he could only shout, "Everyone else to the sky, let Brother Jing deal with him." Lu Gui and the others had hesitant expressions. Zheng Zhong unhesitatingly said, "Listen to him." The other people flew into the sky, emptying out the mountain valley. Only Zhuomo and Zheng Zhong were left to face Huang Zhuoguang. Huang Zhuoguang's confidence had grown as he fought. He laughed, "Both of you can come together." Zhuomo was not affected. "Old Zheng, use your flying sword." Before he finished, a layer of light suddenly covered his eyes. Ling Eye. He raised his hands for a bolt of young fiendish hard lightning. His target was not Huang Zhuoguang, but the space above Huang Zhuoguang. Hiss crack. A flying sword revealed its true form, countless lightning arcs flashing on its body. With a sorrowful wail, it trembled. "You dare to damage my flying sword." Huang Zhuoguang was enraged and tried to charge at Zhuomo. Zheng Zhong instantly understood what Zhuomo had planned. His wrist shook, and several silver snowy white sword energies lit up and pushed Huang Zhuoguang back. Zheng Zhong's flying sword was also 4th grade, so he did not fear the sand mist of Huang Zhuoguang's Ling armor. Since the mountain valley was now empty, he did not have to worry about accidentally wounding his fellows. The sword lights flew from his hand. In close combat, controlling the sword from the distance was not as good as holding the sword. Huang Zhuoguang cut a sorry figure, as he was dodging the sword energies and called back, "Sky Inquirer." Zhuomo didn't care and continued to smash young fiendish hard lightning towards Huang Zhuoguang's unique flying sword like they didn't cost Jingshi. The Sky Inquirer sword was made from the essence of cloud souls. It was both water element and yin. Something like young fiendish hard lightning, which was both young and hard, was its natural enemy. After suffering 20 bolts, it finally stopped trembling, and slammed to the ground like a piece of ordinary metal and stayed there. Anyone with some knowledge knew that this flying sword was now ruined. Many of the Xiuzhi who saw this from the air all sighed. Such a good flying sword. It had been 4th grade. Ruined like this. His beloved sword ruined, Huang Zhuoguang was completely enraged. The hair tie suddenly exploded, his hair standing on end. His eyes were red as he gave a sky-shaking bellow, die. All the Ling power in his body moved. He was like a lion that had lost all reason as he charged at Swa Mo Pia Pia Pia. Several sword energies hit his body. He ignored them all, still charging at Swa Mo Boom. The dusty sky Ling armor shattered to pieces, the sand mist instantly disappearing. But in that instant, the crazy Huang Zhuoguang had arrived in front of Zuemo. What welcomed him was a fist as exquisite as glass. Even though he was furious, Huang Zhuoguang still had some rationality. The fingers on his right hand coming together to form sword essence. Without a flying sword, the danger of the sword essence was many times lower. He had to send out 7 sword essences in a row to destroy this glass fist. The distance between the two was now only 3 zhang. The bloody light in Huang Zhuoguang's eyes grew. His left foot pushing off hard, he was like an arrow released from the bow, his right leg kicking towards Suemo. At the tip of his foot, a double-eyed white tiger had suddenly appeared with a howl. Double-eyed tiger head boot, formation combat technique, tiger howl. A fist covered in countless lights imprinted itself without technique on the forehead of this white tiger. Chapter 276, An Unparalleled Good Bird Sky Glass Wave. The light around the arms crashed inside the tiger head with this punch. At the same time, countless formations on the surface of the glove seemed to come alive, and flew quickly. A 14-revolution sky glass wave, adding on the formation combat technique of the 10,000 appearance gloves, 10,000 elephants. Pew! The vicious tiger head seemed to pop like a bubble. The sound was very small and did not seem like the collision that was imagined. Huang Zhuoguang's vicious and twisted face suddenly froze. The white tiger disappeared. That punch landed on his leg. Boom! The enormous sound made people's heart jump uncontrollably. Half of Huang Zhuoguang's body suddenly exploded, flesh and blood blooming like a goddess spreading flowers. Everyone's breathing stopped. Their movements unconsciously stopped as they stared dazedly at the blood mist in the air, their minds blank. Zheng Zhong, who had been going up to help support Suemo, had lowered his guard and was sprayed directly by this bloody rain. Even though he was used to life and death, his face was pale from fright. Half of Huang Zhuoguang's body had disappeared, his expression frozen there. Suemo sighed in relief, and panted rapidly. That moment had been very risky. Huang Zhuoguang's speed was faster than he had expected. He had only had the time for 14 revolutions. Luckily, he had the 10,000 appearances gloves. Otherwise, his little life would have ended here. The power of the 10,000 appearances gloves were stronger than he assumed. Of the 4th grade talismans, the 10,000 appearances gloves were relatively cheap because its formation technique, 10,000 elephants, increased physical strength and could only be used in close combat. Most of the battles between Xianxia happened in the sky. Close physical battle was extremely rare. If its formation technique was something like fist energies and could deliver long-distance attacks, then its price would shoot up. He looked at Huang Zhuoguang, who only had half a body left. There was no breath there. Suemo had to admire how tough this guy had been. If it wasn't for the fact that he was prepared, and the other was not, he and the other people might not have been able to kill him. Suemo had learned many things from this fight. First, this fight showed that no matter how strong the spell or the individual's strength, they could not defend against scheming. In reality, Huang Zhuoguang was strong, the sword scripture he cultivated was strong. Most Xianxia battled in the skies, and was the place his sword essence was most powerful. This sword scripture was really powerful. But even the strongest sword essence could be stopped if its weakness was found. The second point had strengthened Suemo's desire to take his spoils. The other had been so strong even when attacked at his weakness, it was all due to support from his talismans. Truthfully, if he hadn't been here today, Xingzhong and the others wouldn't have been able to trap him. At important times, talismans could save lives. Even though the scene was slightly bloody, it could not stop Suomo's decision to scalp. However, he only picked one thing this time, clear sky sword scripture. When he held it, Suomo knew he made a profit. He didn't plan on cultivating this, clear sky sword scripture. Right now, there were too many things he had to practice. Reality showed that his talent in the consciousness and body cultivation were stronger. Adding on that he had to study formations, he wanted to cut himself in half. After discovering that, clear sky sword scripture, was suitable for aerial battle, he thought of Lil's subordinates. If they could cultivate this, then that power, he. At the very least, a complete 5th grade sword scripture could sell for a high price. Nothing was left on Huang Zhuoguang's body, not even the remaining double-eyed tiger head boot. Other than Xingzhong who picked an item, the rest were divided among the people. There were more people than talismans, so everyone looked at Suomo. Luckily, Suomo was used to being a leader and used the simplest method, drawing straws. Everyone had an equal chance. The people who got it were happy, the people who didn't could only sigh at their bad luck. The other people had even more respect for Suomo's punch that killed Huang Zhuoguang had frightened them half to death. That was Huang Zhuoguang. In their hearts, Suomo's strength had reached a level they could not comprehend, and Suomo was fair. He wasn't like other leaders that took everything. Everyone could respect this kind of person. Suomo saw them look at him, and was clear to their thoughts. He said, "Since you all want to enter the formation, then let me first say the rules. If there is danger, I am not responsible for saving you. You have to think of ways to protect yourselves. The division will be like just now." Everyone instantly became cheerful. They had never entered a secret realm before. Suomo slowly scanned over everyone and said in a deep voice, "I'll say the ugly things first. Don't blame me for being rude if any of you cause trouble." Finishing, he didn't look at the people behind him, turned, and entered the secret realm. The scenery in front of him suddenly changed, but it made him freeze where he stood. Xingzhong who followed behind him turned to stone instantly. Every person who came in afterwards had dazed expressions. This secret realm was really too small. The scene in front of them could be encompassed within their field of view. It was a place the size of a yard, only 10 zhang in radius. In the middle, there was a sweetly sleeping gray bird. There was nothing else in the area. Other than the Ling energy slightly dense than the outside, there was nothing. Xingzhong said in a low voice, "This should be a secret realm that just formed." He saw that Suomo was still frozen there and assumed that Suomo was very disappointed, so he hurriedly explained. He had great admiration for Suomo. Even though the other was much younger than he was, not in terms of moves and aura, he could not catch up. He had seen many of the leaders in Little Mountain Jia, and no one could rival this youth. That gray bird was sleeping well, a string of saliva hanging from its mouth. Due to the small space, it was possible to hear the rise and fall of its snores. The anger instantly flamed up in Suomo's heart, his expression instantly becoming twisted and frightening Xingzhong and the others. Suomo darted forward and, Pia, slapped Silly Bird's head, the feathers flying. Silly Bird opened her eyes dazedly. "You idiot, Ji nearly died to find you, had to fight other people, and killed all the way over here. You're great, had a nice sleep." "Aha! Pia." Another slap. "Eat eat eat. You glutton. You ate so much. Got into trouble. Will you die if you don't eat? I'm telling you that from today onwards, you can't eat anything." Suomo's swearing stunned the group of people. They were puzzled. What were the origins of this gray bird? Suomo hadn't been this angry even when he was facing Huang Zhuoguang. Just as Suomo's saliva flew, silly bird resumed clarity. It slowly stood up, methodically preening the feathers on its body, not even looking at Suemo straight through the entire process. The people in the surroundings were stunned again. Suemo saw the bird still had a proud expression as though she had no regret, and anger rose. He suddenly grabbed silly bird. This bird just lacked discipline. Gu will educate her. Unexpectedly, the gray shadow in front of him flashed, and his grasp was empty. Hm. In another corner, silly bird looked at Suemo out of the corner of her eyes with a gaze that was as proud as usual. Suemo shouted in fury, "Great! If GE doesn't discipline you today, you don't know how high the sky is, how wide the earth is." Suemo's body flashed. Before he could reach out, an astoundingly fast gray shadow brushed past him. So fast. Suemo paused, his hand coming up empty again in another corner. Silly bird raised her head, still stepping her unique bird walk as she walked gracefully towards the crowd clank. The people that were completely amazed by silly bird unconsciously stepped back to form a path. Silly bird was not courteous, calmly walking towards the entrance. Was what just happened a delusion? Suemo wasn't sure. Had this bird gotten some benefits this time? He looked at the empty and bare secret realm. He felt it was increasingly likely. This bird was a glutton. All the good things probably ended up in her stomach. This could not stand. He had to interrogate her when they got back. Zhengzhong's expression changed slightly. Of the crowd, his cultivation was the highest. He had seen that scene clearly just now. That gray bird was almost impossibly fast. He clearly saw that when Suemo moved, it had brushed past Suemo and passed to the other side. What did that mean? It meant that the gray bird's speed was many times faster than Suemo. Zhengzhong's cultivation was higher than Suemo, but there wasn't a great difference in speed between the two of them. Multiple times faster than Suemo meant it was multiple times faster than him. Zhengzhong felt he was going insane. Heavens! What world was this? How could so many weirdos come out? He already felt the next generation was terrifying due to Suemo's strength. Now there was a bird that was multiple times faster than he was. Zhengzhong didn't dare to even think about what other abilities this gray bird had. Just its lightning-fast speed was enough for it to be undefeatable. Completely speechless, Zhengzhong felt even more curious about Suemo's identity. So young and such power, with such a strong Ling beast, he definitely wasn't an average Xianxia. Was it a disciple of a large sect? He felt that it was plausible. He always believed that what Clear Sky sect was doing to Little Mountain Jia could not continue for long. The reason was very simple. Kunlun certainly would allow such a matter to occur within its borders. When he had been young, he had interacted with a Kunlun disciple, and it left a deep impression on him. Suemo had faced Huang Zhuoguang and didn't hesitate in killing the other. Any factions that existed in Little Mountain Jia wouldn't be so impulsive. Young, of incomprehensible strength, a strong Ling beast, and not afraid of Clear Sky sect seeking revenge. With all these conditions added together, Zhengzhong increasingly felt that Suemo could possibly be a disciple of Kunlun. Oh, even if he wasn't, he was at least the disciple of a large sect. Just as Zhengzhong was thinking hard, Suemo had ran out of the secret realm. The others still searched in the secret realm due to dissatisfaction, wanting to plow the ground 3 chi deep, but still did not find anything. Zhengzhong was cunning and tightly followed Suemo. He already made the decision to follow Suemo. If Suemo was a disciple of a certain big sect, then they wouldn't lose if they followed. If Suemo wasn't a disciple of some large sect, and relied on himself to get to this step, then he was a monster. Having made the decision, his face was full of smiles. Once a person's attitude changed, their feeling when they looked at something was completely different. The more he looked, the more he felt that silly bird had an aura and mannerisms. Good bird. An unparalleled good bird. Chapter 277, Detection Wukong Mountain. Mu Shi suddenly stood up. What? Stars in daytime appeared in Little Mountain Jie. Yes, Darren, the middle-aged person responded. He was somewhat puzzled. But we clearly had searched on our way here. It isn't possible. Mu Shi waved her hand. That isn't a mystery. If this Darren does not want to meet us, they naturally will have ways to avoid our scans. She sank into thought. After a while, she raised her head. It isn't a coincidence that stars in daytime happened here and in Little Mountain Jie. Search to see if there is anyone from Wukong Sword Sect that has not moved to Bright Wave Jie. Use every resource we have, and notify the other Darren to look into this matter. Also, tell our scouts in Little Mountain Jie pay attention to the Xiaoxia that moved to Little Mountain Jie from Sky Moon Jie, especially those that had previously been Wukong Sword Sect disciples. The middle-aged person said, we didn't leave enough people in Little Mountain Jie. Then send more, Mu Shi said decisively. Send a 300-man troop immediately to Little Mountain Jie for this matter. This information shall be immediately reported to the Elder Council. Urge that the supporting troops should advance and quickly take over Little Mountain Jie. Yes. The middle-aged person said cleanly. Not long after, a Yao troop of 300 people hurriedly flew away. The mood of Wukong Mountain became tense. However, even Mu Shi would never have thought there was a group of people hiding in the mountain beneath her feet. They've started to move. A 300-strong troop. Looking at the direction, they seem to be going to Little Mountain Jie. A young person with sharp brows said. In front of him was Lin Qian. There was a person standing beside Lin Qian, it was Wei Sheng. Little Mountain Jie. A pondering expression flashed through Lin Qian's eyes. Did they find something in Little Mountain Jie? Brother Wei, how many shidi do you have in Little Mountain Jie? Wei Sheng's brows furrowed slightly, but he truthfully answered, only Zwa shidi and the others. Had my eyes failed me? Lin Qian muttered to himself. Wei Sheng did not reply. The mood instantly became slightly awkward. They were currently in the sword cave Wei Sheng had trained in before. He was very familiar with the place. No one would have thought that there was an elite force hidden in here. This was the strongest troop that Wei Sheng had ever seen. They were well trained, and had great endurance. What shocked him the most was their individual strengths. Most of them were of similar age to him, no older than 60 years old, and all of them had Ningmai cultivation, each just slightly weaker than him, and about the same as Luo Li Shidi. In a slightly smaller sect, this kind of cultivation was enough to become a core disciple, but here, they were just average members. 800 people. He could not think how powerful this faction was to have gathered such a strong force. Lin Qian's identity became even more mysterious in his mind. It was clear these people respected Lin Qian from the bottom of their hearts. He was certain that if Lin Qian encountered danger, every person here, except himself, would be willing to give up their lives to defend him. But no matter how much power Lin Qian had, Wei Sheng still did not like him. Because Lin Qian was suspicious of Wukong Sword Sect. Even though the sect had already migrated and settled down in Bright Wave Jie, Wei Sheng was filled with deep attachment towards everything of Wukong Mountain. On the matter of Zwa Shidi's disappearance, he maintained his silence. He had a deep bond with Zwa. He could understand the sect's actions, but he could not completely accept them. Presently the sect was much larger than before, but the flavor had changed. Not just him, even Luo Li and Xiaoguo maintained their silence. The desolate wood reef had received a destructive attack from the Yao army. The chance that Shidi was still alive was small. He wasn't willing to take Lin Qian and his group to hide in the sword cave, but due to the sect leader's orders, he carried it out. He decided to just observe. He was familiar with every place in Wukong sword sect, and never found any place that was unusual. Yet what he hadn't expected was that the Yao army had come to Wukong Mountain and established their base here. His head was lowered as he thought. He suddenly felt that if it really was Wuxia and the others that were the problem, it wasn't a bad matter. At least, it meant that Wuxia was still alive. Thinking about that, his brow relaxed. In a secret realm in Sky Moon Jia, Bo Feng listened to the report of his subordinate and said heavily, "Little Mountain Jia?" After a while, he shook his head, "Let's just observe." Suemo was very depressed, extremely depressed. Silly Bird was extremely fast now, flying close and far away. Her eyes undoubtedly showed the attitude of an ungenerous person who had become powerful. Showing off, boldly showing off. Suemo gritted his teeth. He had thought many times of raising his hand to throw bolts of young fiendish hard lightning at Silly Bird. He really saw the bird clearly. Usually, she was a proud show-off. Now she was even more so with the support of her faster speed. This could not be tolerated. Before he could think of an idea, he heard Jing Zhong praise from beside him, "This bird is really wonderful. As fast as lightning, it is rare to see, really rare to see." Lu Gui and the others agreed. Suemo almost spat blood upon hearing it. He glanced and saw the smugness in Silly Bird's eyes had increased, the gray feathers at her tail rising towards the sky. Gu finally knows why you guys have had such a hard time, you don't have good eyes. Suemo ignored them. There were 18 Xiozha that decided to follow him. The others chose to leave. Suemo didn't try to get them to stay. Of this group, other than Jing Zhong who he felt had some skill, the strengths of the other people were just average. Without him realizing it, his eyes had become much picker. He had felt this especially clearly in the fight this time. If it was the batch of people that Lil Miss had trained, if he had had one platoon, then he had the confidence to kill Huang Zhuguang. If this group met a group from Vermilion Bird Camp, one-on-one, the two sides would be fight to a stalemate. 5 versus 5, Vermilion Bird Camp would win. 10 versus 10, there was no meaning. 100 versus 100, Vermilion Bird Camp wouldn't even have one fatality. He heard that Vermilion Bird Camp was trying out new battle tactics now, and he felt anticipation. Gongsun Shidi had settled into his role even more, and became even more outstanding. The female Xiao flew silently beside him, Jing Zhong and the others felt she was slightly strange, but held no fear towards her. Yet Silly Bird was extremely afraid of the female Xiao. Even though she continuously came up to Suemo to show off, she didn't dare go near the female Xiao. Suemo glanced at the female Xiao and sighed. Even though it looked as though she was fine, but in reality, her body had been severely wounded this time. When he got to the mountain cave, the female Xiao was still meditating. He took the chance to inspect her body, and found a strange situation. Her body was even more damaged, but the strange purple power inside her body had become even greater. This was a situation that Suemo felt he could not understand. This purple power was like a net trapping every part of her body. Her body had already become split into pieces. The only reason she had not collapsed was due to this purple power. However, Suemo also found the more damaged her body was, the stronger this purple power was, and the tighter it enveloped her. An evil skill. Other than these two words, Suemo had no other words to describe it. "Boss, where's our territory?" Lu Gui carefully asked. "Sky Star Peak," Suemo carelessly responded. Lu Gui jumped in fright. "Sky Star Peak? There are many factions in that area." "Oh." Still thinking of the female Xiao, Suemo was unconcerned. "Not anymore." Lu Gui's heart steadied. Looking at it now, boss faction likely wasn't small. He usually had many avenues of information, and had interacted with some of the factions of Sky Star Peak in the past. He hadn't expected that boss had swept all of them clean. In Little Mountain Jia, there was nothing more assuring than entering a powerful faction. Lu Gui snicked and said, Little Mountain Jia is somewhat chaotic. I heard that Nanxing village was torn to pieces. Now that we killed Huang Zhuoguang, Clear Sky Sect is going to be angry. People really are brave these days, they even dare to attack Nanxing village. TSK, so powerful. So great. Lu Gui smacked his lips, admiration on his face. The other people also felt the same. Zuemo made a sound of confirmation and said, you don't need to admire them, we did it. The surroundings instantly became deathly silent. Lu Gui was so frightened he almost dropped from the sky. He then looked at the others. All of them had gaping mouths as they looked dazedly at Zuemo. Zuemo looked strangely at them. What's with your expressions? Nanxing village isn't as hard to attack as you imagine. All of the people, including Zhengzhong, could not pull themselves out of their shock. Zhengzhong responded the fastest. At the beginning, he had thought that Zuemo was a disciple of a large sect. This seemed to prove his speculation. In Little Mountain Jia, no one had ever been willing to oppose Clear Sky Sect this openly. Suddenly, a crowd of black dots appeared on the horizon. The little black dots flew extremely quickly. After a while, they were 20 li away. They finally saw them. It was a group of about 20 people. Zhengzhong's heart jumped, shock flashing through his eyes. He shouted loudly, everyone, on your guard. The group of 20 or so Xiuzha flew extremely quickly, but what shocked Zhengzhong the most was the formation of their troop. Flying at such high speed, the troop's formation had not changed, like a sharp blade breaking through the ice. From far away, he could feel a sharp presence hitting him in the face. They were flying straight at them. Zhengzhong's expression changed again. In his eyes, the 20 people seemed like one body. Their energy, breathing, and Ling power were so well attuned that there was no flaw. Everyone felt they had dropped into a crevasse. Without even needing to fight, their confidence was destroyed. The other came as fast as lightning without any intentions of concealing themselves. The howls in the air roared in waves like thunder, the target was clearly them. Some of the Xiuzha paled from fright and scattered to escape. Zuomo's expression suddenly turned dark. However, only 5 Xiuzha had fled. The remaining 13 people were still by his side. So powerful. Zhengzhong's heart leapt wildly. He forcibly suppressed the terror in his heart. He was a third stratum Ningmai Xiuzha, but facing the charge of these 20 people, instinctive terror rose. However, he still moved in front of Zuemo. He couldn't defeat this crowd, but he would do his best to protect Zuemo and escape with him. Unexpectedly, the 20 people suddenly decelerated, making an immediate stop in front of them. Boss, the person at the fount shouted with joy. Zhengzhong felt he had gone from hell to heaven in an instant. Before they could be happy, they heard Zuomo's deep and murderous voice. Those 5, execute. Chapter 278, The insane outer hall. Wei Qingbin's mood was very good these past 2 days because boss had returned. It wasn't only him. Every person he passed on his way also had a sunny smile on their faces. It was strange. No matter if it was individual power, or skill in command, boss wasn't the strongest, but he was every person's pillar of support. The few days that boss had been absent, every person in Golden Crow City had been very worried, like they had lost their souls. Wei Qingbin knew that with Gongsun Darren present, nothing would happen to Golden Crow City. But there was still a layer of darkness that uncontrollably came over his heart. Fortunately, boss had returned, the dark cloud over their hearts had dissipated. Every person in the city believed that as long as boss was here, any problem would be easily solved. In this recent while, his forging skill had furiously grew, especially in forging small parts. Even Master Ji Wei would praise him occasionally. In a short amount of time, he formed an affection for this place. The forging masters he usually interacted with, especially Masters Ji Wei and Sun Bao, all were very skilled, took good care of him, and never skimped on guidance. The only person he didn't like interacting with was Bao Yi. That slender bamboo stick was very miserly. It took a lot of effort to get some materials from his hands. Even Masters Sun Bao and Ji Wei didn't like interacting with Bao Yi, so the burden had landed on his head. With no other way, he could only force himself. Each transaction was a fierce and terrible battle. But today, Bao Yi was unusually easygoing. It seemed that even the thin bamboo stick had a good mood now that boss was back. In contrast to Golden Crow City's happy mood, the faces of everyone in the outer hall was deathly. What? Huang Daren was killed. Xiang's lips were trembling, his hands cold. The news has already spread. The Xianxia that found the news also had a trembling note in his voice. Huang Daren and the others went to search for a secret realm. Others schemed, and he was killed by multiple opponents. Impossible. Xiang said sternly, how could Huang Daren be killed by many people so easily? Where's the other people with him? All killed. In total, more than 20 inner sect disciples. Bang, Xiang's legs weakened and he collapsed on the chair, his face filled with hopelessness. Every elder present had faces so pale there was no blood. Everyone understood that the affair was too big this time. So big, they could not conceal it. The entire outer hall would face the anger of the old forefather when it was time. No, the entire Little Mountain Jia would have to face the anger of the old forefather. Xiang suddenly achieved clarity. He seemed to have grabbed onto the last life-saving piece of grass, and suddenly stood up. Who did it? Who did it? This subordinate is still investigating my ass. Xiang's eyes were entirely red, his anger unrestrained. If these people won't let us live, then we won't let them live. He took a deep breath, and calmed his emotions, gradually calming down. He looked at the elders that had sank into hopelessness, and said with craziness, we only have one path. Everyone blankly raised their heads. They really couldn't think of a path they could take. We need to find the perpetrator that killed Huang Daren and give them to old forefather as penance. Xiang said in a low voice, this time, whether or not our penance is acceptable will determine if we can survive. Many people had doubtful expressions. The matter this time was too serious. They didn't believe that the old forefather would forgive them even if they found the perpetrator. This is our only chance. Xiang said crisply, and then added meaningfully. Old forefather will still need people to take care of affairs. If we can let old forefather see our abilities, the hope we can survive is greater. Everyone all became alert. Even though they didn't believe it, but Xiang was right, this was their only chance. They had no route to escape. The power of the outer hall was gathered together again. Every elder and all the Xianxia were sent out. Xiang decided to use the stupidest method, moving through faction by faction. He didn't believe that he couldn't find the perpetrator. Little Mountain Jia started to boil again. With Silly Bird found, Swa Mo went back to building the city. Huang Zhuoguang was killed, the state of Little Mountain Jia would definitely become tense. There wasn't much time left for him. Thankfully, Little Mountain Jia, while a small Jia, would still take a large amount of effort to search for one person. But Swa Mo deeply felt he was pressed for time. He built crazily. Swa Mo spat out the soil from his mouth. His entire body was covered in mud, only his eyes were exposed. Looking at the finished tunnels, he had a satisfied expression. The tunnels between the city and the other 6 mountain peaks were finished. The remaining work was to set up formations. What he felt the most from digging tunnels was that this thing really was something for Diana Xiao to do. Without physical strength, he definitely couldn't have persisted. When a sword Xiao was powerful, they could slice through a mountain peak with one blow, but if a sword Xiao had to come dig a tunnel, it was like they were blind. Thinking of his gigantic formation, he felt that his body was filled with inexhaustible energy. He bent his head to and kept working. Without rest or sleep, Suomo worked for more than 10 days, and finished all the tunnels. In these 10 days, Little Mountain Jia had become a mess. The outer hall seemed to have gone crazy as they searched everywhere. They even put out a most wanted list. The most famous on there was Zhengzhong of Ningmai third stratum cultivation. Many others also recognized those like Lu Gui. The only one that was unknown was that black-looking person at the top of the list. What people didn't know to laugh or cry about was that there was also a bird on the ranking, a big gray bird. Had the outer hall gone insane? Many people hadn't placed any importance on the list when they first received it. However, the outer hall used their following actions to demonstrate that they were not joking. In a short 10 days, 5 factions had been massacred. The troops of the outer hall didn't seem to show any signs of stopping, and continued to push outwards, not leaving anything behind. Instantly, Little Mountain Jia became a mess. Many factions, upon seeing the terrible situation, instantly pledged their allegiance to the outer sect to avoid the calamity. Those factions that were not willing to enter the outer sect could only keep retreating backwards. The outer hall that faced no resistance moved even faster. After a while, the factions that had joined the outer hall quickly were divided into cadet halls of the outer hall, and each put in charge of an area rich in ores. With this, everyone understood what the outer hall was planning. The outer hall wanted to swallow all of Little Mountain Jia. They were no longer content with holding the throats of all the factions. They demanded complete control. Gong Sun Cha in a panic went and found Zuemo. After Zuemo heard Gong Sun Cha's report, he thought for a while, and said, "We need to first get rid of the outer hall." He then explained. "There's really too many people in this batch of people from the outer hall. If we don't get rid of them bit by bit, it's slightly dangerous. I'm worried that the old forefather might not be so proud. Then no matter how good our trap it cannot stand against a battle tactic of using sheer numbers. The best path is to lower the power of the outer hall. That way, the clear sky old forefather would have no other option but to come find us." Gong Sun Cha nodded. They only had one chance. If they were exposed, the clear sky old forefather wouldn't be so dumb as to be tricked a second time. "Can we defeat them?" Suemo asked Gong Sun Cha worriedly. The Vermilion Bird camp now had more than 700 people. The eastern and western camps had 2,000 people, but Suemo was doubtful regarding their combat abilities. The forces of the outer hall had expanded rapidly, their numbers reaching more than 10,000 people. The difference in numbers was too large. Gong Sun Cha smiled shyly and said, "We can try." Since he understood Shixiang's thinking, Gong Sun Cha quickly responded. He no longer needed to worry about the safety of the Golden Crow City. The 36 formation battle watchtowers were enough for self-defense. He moved out with the Vermilion Bird camp, the eastern and western camps were to stand guard, and to control the watchtowers when it was time. As to guard camp, Gong Sun Cha didn't even go there once. Who could depend on a group of show slaves to do anything? Gong Sun Cha's departure was silent. The great majority of people in Golden Crow City were ignorant. Suemo also realized the tense situation. He instantly responded, quickly sending out orders. Without noticing it, the inside of Golden Crow City started to become tense. Especially the forging division. Every person could feel the tenseness that spread through the air. After a few days, a group of Xiozha appeared near Golden Crow City. When Vermilion Bird camp had been present, Gong Sun Cha had arranged for patrols to stop people from approaching Golden Crow City. Now that Vermilion Bird Camp had been deployed, there hadn't been anyone to maintain the patrols. When the Xianxia that were training on the formation battle watchtowers saw the crowd of dots on the horizon, they became nervous, and hurriedly sent out an alarm. The Golden Crow City was on alert. Heavens! When had there been a city here? The Xianxia at the front looked in disbelief at the little city on the faraway mountain peak. Everyone else was also staring with wide eyes, their expressions stunned as they looked at the little city. At this time, a beam of light penetrated the clouds like a sharp sword, and landed on the Golden Crow City. Golden Crow City instantly lit up with a faint light. The faint golden light exuded the presence of the sun. Even from tens of li out, it still caused trepidation. Miracle! This is a miracle, the Xianxia at the front muttered to himself. All of the people were deeply shocked by Golden Crow City. Their gazes couldn't bear to move away for more than a second. They flew on soullessly. When they flew to a distance of 10 li from the city, the little city was even more realistic in their eyes. It was a city of the sun. They could not imagine what people could construct such a beautiful city. But when they unconsciously went closer, the Xianxia at the front suddenly smelled a dangerous presence. Dots of silver light lit up on the little city. Everyone instantly stopped in their tracks. When the Xianxia at the front saw the watchtowers that were higher than the city walls, an unfamiliar term flashed through his mind. His soul instantly left his body. He shouted hoarsely in terror, "Retreat! Quick, retreat!" Every watchtower that lit up looked like a silver dot from a distance. The silver dots lit up one after the other. All 36 silver dots bathed in the sunlight. The Xianxia at the front retreated in panic, his expression shocked, and eyes filled with terror. Formation battle watchtowers. Those were formation battle watchtowers. Chapter 279, Transaction. After receiving a strong fright, the Xianxia retreated 20 li before stopping. Luckily, the silver dots from Golden Crow City did not approach and they calmed down slightly. "Head, what are formation battle watchtowers?" the subordinate asked, puzzled. The other Xianxia also had bewildered faces, but some Xianxia had fearful expressions. "Great weapons to protect a city." The head looked at Golden Crow City and warned, "You have to be careful. If you ever see a city that have things like what you just saw, you have to be careful. The power of formation battle watchtowers are very high. They are used to stop enemies from attacking. Usually, they can only be seen in larger cities. I hadn't expected such a small city to have 36 of them. It's just 36 of them. We have this many people, one charge, and we can take it down," the subordinate objected, unconvinced. "Charge," the head smiled coldly. "Don't cause trouble for me. The other side is much stronger than our people. Don't look down on those 36 formation battle watchtowers. That thing's expensive. Even if we sell ourselves, we won't be able to trade for one of them." "That expensive?" The subordinate's eyes widened as he gaped. Very expensive," the head said. "Think about it. Right now, we are worried about ling grains every day, but the other has the ability to build formation battle watchtowers. Is there a need to fight?" No one spoke. This comparison was simple and straightforward, able to be comprehended at a glance. In Little Mountain Jia, everyone was in a half-starved state. The rarity of ling grains were something every faction had to face. "If they don't lack for ling grains, can we buy some ling grains from them?" the subordinate suddenly asked. The head stilled, and thought. He was right. The other had the ability to build such a city, they shouldn't lack for ling grains. In Little Mountain Jia right now, even if you had the Jingxia, there was no place to buy ling grains. Just at this time, several people were seen flying out of Golden Crow City. They were extremely fast, arriving in front of them in a short while. There were 4 people, the leader a male Xiao that was both tall and thin. Beside him were 3 guards dressed in golden armor. Everyone's eyes were attracted by the exaggerated fire-red broadswords the golden armor guards were holding. The 3 Xiaojia were completely enveloped by the golden armor as they stood coldly. The head's heart shook. He could not see the true power of these 3 golden armor guards, but the presence and faint viciousness that spilled out made him smell danger. This one is Bao Yi, the main manager of Golden Crow City's businesses. Bao Yi made an elegant bow. Ever since he had followed Boss, what he had done was watch over the stores. Now, it was finally time for him to go back to his old profession. At this moment, his tears almost streamed over his face. Bao Yi. The head felt that this name was somewhat familiar but he couldn't recall it. However, he didn't let the puzzlement stay long on his face, and filled it with a smile. Nice to meet Manager Bao. The people noted down the name of this city, Golden Crow City. My apologies. Bao Yi's expression made everyone's hearts tense. Detecting expressions were basic techniques that every businessperson had to learn. As one of the best, Bao Yi naturally had great skill. His expression was indifferent, but he was very satisfied inside. Before, he had only been a little black market dealer. Now, he could cause such a large crowd of Xiaojia to feel nervous. This batch of Xiaojia was about 500 or so people, and could be considered a significant faction. He felt satisfied, but he didn't want to ruin his first business transaction. He put on a friendly smile. Due to our city being too small, it cannot hold everyone. You can set up camp outside the city. All fighting is restricted within 20 li of the city. If you would like to camp inside this area, you will need to pay a fee, and we will direct you to an area to camp. You can also choose to set up camp outside this 20 li area, and not have to pay any fee. Also, our city has a market inside. It will have many surprises for everyone. If you have any needs, our city will open every day at sunrise, and close at sunset. We will do our best to provide services for everyone. When the head heard such formal words, he thought inside that this was truly a large faction. Look at the mannerisms, the composure. They were even so skilled in demanding Jingxia, to the point you couldn't get angry. Swallowing, the head said, "What do you take in trade?" Little Mountain Jia was extremely chaotic. All kinds of order had collapsed long ago. Many factions traded in all kinds of weird things. Jingxia 3rd grade and above is accepted. Also, to provide convenience, we have specialized conversion services. Acceptable materials are those 3rd grade and above. Talismans and jade scrolls need to be 4th grade and above. Hearing this, the head was even more shocked. Look at that, they only take in jade scrolls and talismans of 4th grade and above. In their group, there were only 2 4th grade talismans. Compared to the other, they were so poor they were practically beggars. His heart feeling even less confidence, his voice became smaller. Then we will camp outside the 20 li. The friendly smile hung on Bao Yi's face. No problem. He then handed the head a paper crane, saying, "If needed, you can contact me at any time. Everyone, you have had a long trip, I will not disturb you, goodbye." Finishing, he bowed courteously before taking the 3 golden armor guards and flying back to the city. When Bao Yi left, this head instantly asked, "Who has Jingxia?" There were many that kept some, but the total was pitifully small. At this time, a subordinate reminded him, "Head, don't we have a batch of white bone stone? We can sell to them." The head hit his head. Right. White bone stone was shaped like white bone, hence the name. It was a rare 3rd grade material. Instantly feeling that his wallet wasn't so empty, the head instantly was lively. We will go look around the city tomorrow, and see what things we can buy." At this time, the subordinate suddenly remembered. "Boss, I remember now." "Remember what?" the head turned his face. Bao Yi, this subordinate said. Bao Yi is a black market dealer. He had went to Nanxing village, but the chief elder of the outer hall had enmity against him. Don't you remember? At that time, you even told me to never go to him to buy anything so the outer hall wouldn't hold a grudge against us. I remember. After this reminder, the head instantly recalled it. It seems he caught onto a big tree this time, and struck it rich. The owner of this city is really daring to not even give face to the outer hall. Boss, say, could it be that it was this group that did Nanxing village? The subordinate said in a quiet voice. The head shook and jumped in fright. He instantly reprimanded in a low voice, don't speak nonsense. You can't say these things, you can be killed for this. Yes, yes, yes. The subordinate's face was slightly pale as he nodded continuously. Waving his hand to push the subordinate to the side, the head couldn't help but think. For some reason, what the subordinate just said whirled through his mind like a ghost haunting him. Had it been this group who did that? Before today, he had never thought there could be any faction in Little Mountain Jia that could be this powerful. Even the outer hall couldn't compare. Everyone had already discussed in depth what happened at Nanxing village, and had come to a consensus. The attacking side's abilities were not smaller than the outer hall. If it really was them. The more the head thought, the more scared he was. It was fated that he would have a sleepless night. Golden Crow City, Zuomo worked as he asked, how was it? Bao Yi stood respectfully at the side. They don't seem to have too much jingsher. No problem, Zuomo said, we can loan them some. Loan. Bao Yi was very shocked. Then wouldn't it be unprofitable for us? Loan it to them, and they can then sell to other people. Zuomo clearly had great enthusiasm towards jingsher. He even stopped doing his work and snickered. As long as there is jingsher to be earned, they will work harder than anyone else. But what if they take the stuff and run? Bao Yi said, full of worry. What are you afraid of? Zuomo was unconcerned. Where can they run to? They won't run. Here, they can continuously make jingsher. Seeing Bao Yi was going to speak, Zuomo waved his hand and said. Even if we lose, it won't be a lot. Other than making jingsher, it is more important to sell the black processing meditation mat. Bao Yi was confused. With the black processing meditation mat, do they still need ling grains? Zuomo asked. They don't need it. Bao Yi shook his head. That's the point, Zuomo patiently explained. If they don't need ling grains, they will not be controlled by Clear Sky Sect. In the future when we are fighting Clear Sky Sect, they would not be pressured to help Clear Sky Sect. This is more important to us. Jingsher is much easier to get than ling grains. If Clear Sky Old Forefather comes, they wouldn't dare, Bao Yi said. A single Jindan ruling a Jia, have you ever heard of it? Zuomo asked. Then he answered his own question, I've never heard of it. Why is everyone so afraid of Clear Sky Sect? It is not Clear Sky Old Forefather, but the ling grains. Without the threat of ling grains, everyone will think, I can't defeat you, but you can't do anything if I stay away from you. I don't need your help. In other words, Little Mountain Jia is still a cage, but inside the cage, people won't have to worry about their cultivation collapsing in the short term, Zuomo said. No one likes Clear Sky Sect. In the short term without the threat of ling grains, they won't help Clear Sky Sect when we fight against Clear Sky Sect. Bao Yi finally realized and then asked, will they help us? If we get rid of Clear Sky Sect, it would be of benefit to everyone. No, Zuomo's answer was clean. You aren't giving jingsher to them, why will they help you? They also have to consider what if we are defeated. They still have to stay in this cage. Bao Yi was silent. He knew that boss wasn't wrong, but for some reason, he was slightly disappointed by this answer. Suemo knew Bao Yi's emotions and comforted. It's alright, we hadn't been planning on depending on them in the first place. We rely on ourselves. Boss, I know what to do. Bao Yi nodded his head firmly, a undetectable cold light flashing in his eyes. His heart was full of enthusiasm for battle. As a successful black market businessperson, he decided to use the truth to tell them why he could establish himself in the black market, and the difference between black market businesspeople and normal businesspeople. It was all one word: black. Chapter 280, Prelude Outside of Nanxing Village. They definitely would never expect that we would return. Lei Peng looked at the newly rebuilt Nanxing village, his bearded face snickering. The other people all had strange expressions. No one had expected that Lil Tamis would sneak all the way to Nanxing village. However, they were full of enthusiasm about destroying the enemy's main base again. Everyone was drooling while staring at Nanxing village, howling as they charged at Nanxing village. Hopelessness floated onto the faces of the enemies. Golden Crow City. We have all kinds of talismans for all types of shouja, the offensive type, the defensive type, the supporting type. You can see them all. A good talisman can save your life at a critical moment, and they are not expensive. This is a special product of our city, 4th grade Golden Crow Fire. I think that I don't need to introduce this. If you have enough jingsher, we can provide you with an unlimited amount. Of course, something as good as this needs a price suitable for it. What you see right now is a top-secret talisman, Black Processing Meditation Mat. When you possess this, you do not need to worry about relying completely on Ling grains. What? You don't believe me? Oh, I can understand. No matter, what can be more effective than personally experiencing it? Out of consideration for our customers, we provide trial service. Please come with me, you do not have enough jingsher. Oh, I need to consider this. You know that all of our merchandise are good items that are in high demand. No shouja would be able to refuse this Golden Crow Fire. Black Processing Meditation Mat, oh, this definitely is an mighty talisman. Yes, it is not outrageous to use mighty to describe it. It can help you get rid of your reliance on Ling grains. Oh, so it's like that. I can understand your difficulties. Since you are so sincere, we can both move back a step. You can first borrow a batch of merchandise from our city, but it will not be a huge amount. I trust that you have the abilities to quickly sell all of it with your power. We will not interfere with how much you sell it for. I feel that the large profit involved is enough for your purchasing power to quickly increase in a short time. But considering that we do not have a history of cooperating together, you need to provide a guarantee. Anything can work. I see that your 4th grade flying sword appeared very good. Oh, a gentleman will not take another's items. Since it is so meaningful to you, then this one will not demand it. Then we only have one option, a lean through people. You only have to provide 100 people as collateral, we will have a great relationship. When the head came out of Golden Crow City, he shook his slightly inflated head. That slender bamboo rod really knew how to talk. Those good items still seemed to be swaying in front of his eyes. The cold wind that blew against his face cleared his mind. Looking at the faraway mountain peak, he took a deep breath. He knew an outrageously good opportunity was in front of him. If he could catch this chance, his strength would quickly go up a few levels. Xu Long carefully listened to the voice that came out of the necklace. However, the person who was speaking this time seemed to be arguing with someone. They can only cultivate Mo, they can't do what the Yao do. Xu Long was very familiar with this voice that was always slightly scornful. It was this one that had taught them how to cultivate. Boss subordinate was so mysterious, he had never shown his true face. However, he didn't dare interrupt. This Darren's temper was not good. Oh, you aren't wrong. The boy is even more outrageous now. We can't let him continue to be so smug. We are people of status. Okay, we can try what you suggest. Listening to this, Darren talked to himself. Shu Long perceptively stayed silent. Shu Long, the necklace passed through the Darren's call. He hurriedly responded, "This one is here. From today onwards, the cultivation plan is being changed." Yes. Shu Long did not argue or object. They would cultivate whichever way Darren said to. Before this, they didn't know anything about cultivation. Darren listed all the places that needed to be modified in detail. Shu Long noted all of them down. When he met places he did not understand, he would ask for clarification. Pu Yao clearly was very satisfied with Shu Long's attitude, but he still added, "Oh, you need to supervise them. With your turtle speed, when will you even cultivate to an acceptable level?" "Yes." Shu Long seriously answered. "Especially that, Crow Fiend Mo killing formation, you need to rehearse it well." In the tunnel, Zhua Mo wiped the sweat off his forehead, a satisfied expression on his face. The four sides of the tunnel had to be carved with formations to create a complete formation. The amount of work Zhua Mo had to complete this time was vast. The 9 formation belts interlocked together, each of them with a 4th grade formation as the core, and 13 3rd grade formations set up in the perimeter. 9 4th grade formations, 117 3rd grade formations. He almost didn't even dare to think about it. But he still gritted his teeth and started. If he couldn't charge out of here, he would die in here sooner or later. He had struggled greatly when setting up these formations. Every day, his ling and spiritual power were greatly used exhausted. However, his labor hadn't been wasted. He had finished 1/3 of it. Thinking about it, he felt it was impossible. He had never completed so much before. Releasing a long breath, the golden threads of fire flying in the air were as mischievous as pixies and flew in front of him. In the firelight, he looked at the female Xiao nearby. She stood there motionlessly like wood. There was a mask on her face again. Suemo had reforged a black mask for her. Her eyes were gray and empty, only flashing with the purple light when she was fighting. This woman who was covered in mysteries. Looking at her, Suemo's thoughts wandered. "Who are you?" He shook his head hard and threw away these stray thoughts. Right now, he needed to think how to finish the big formation. For him, he had never thought of such a large formation belt before. From the planning to fruition, it had been all completed by him. Every time he thought of it, his blood heated up. When Ji gets this done, what heroes pass, what sect Jinji, all of that is nothing. He gathered 120% of his mental effort and went back to his work. In the forging division, Sun Bao wiped away the sweat and said with a grimace to Ji Wei, "Boss pace is too astonishing, we really have it hard." Ji Wei could only grimace along. "What can we do? I don't know if boss is made out of metal or something. We forged so many parts, he shouldn't be so fast even if he was eating them." The two could only grimace at each other before bending down to forge. Gong Sun Cha looked at Nanxing village under his feet that had been once again turned to ruins, his face expressionless. He knew this was only the start. It was like a war that had just started. The following battles would be their true test. "Darren, where are we going now?" Xia Shan asked with anticipation. He was totally won over by this head who was much lower in cultivation than him. Boss and Lil Miss ages were not high, but why were they so strong? Supposedly, they were disciples of the same sect. It was very rare to see such strong disciples at such a young age. The ambush this time was not as fierce as last time, but this kind of disciplined style made Xia Shan feel very good inside. In such a short period of time, everyone had made such large improvements. He felt it was incredible when he thought back. The other people looked towards Lil Miss with anticipation. When Lil Miss personally led the troops, he would always give them unexpected surprises. Didn't they create cadet halls? Pick one to start with. Gong Sun Cha's face had a rare cold expression, his tone murderous. This group of battle maniacs instantly became excited. Only a rare few realized the abnormality of the mission this time and from Lil Miss' unusual attitude. They looked at each other. Was the final battle going to start? Sky Water Jia, a grand yard filled with grass and ling beasts frolicking about. In the very center, there was an ancient copper diffuser as high as a person. Beside the stove, there was a middle-aged Xianxia sitting cross-legged on a meditation mat, surrounded by the smoke. Suddenly, a paper crane flew out of the sky and landed in front of the middle-aged Xianxia. The middle-aged Xianxia opened their eyes, and looked at the paper crane with a surprised expression. He hurriedly opened the paper crane. After carefully reading it over, he sank into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head. His finger flicked and a sword light flew out. Shortly after, a female Xiao flew in front of the middle-aged Xiao, and bowed slightly. "Why has Darren summoned me?" The female Xiao wore deep red ling armor, her features pretty and her mannerisms restrained. "Do you know the situation of Little Mountain Jie?" the middle-aged Xianxia asked solemnly. "I know some." "Oh, speak." Little Mountain Jie is managed by Clear Sky sect presently. After the Yao army passed through, the Ling energy there has withered. Many Xianxia have become trapped inside because the Clear Sky sect blockades the Jie River. The female Xiao paused slightly. The Hundred Flowers Alliance and other sects have relationships with Clear Sky sect, and have made private transactions. Clear Sky sect's guts isn't small. The face of the middle-aged Xianxia was slightly heavy. It looks as though they want to turn Little Mountain Jie into their own private property. Who's the leader of Clear Sky sect right now? It is Clear Sky Old Forefather. That old man, the middle-aged person said with a smirk. There naturally will be people to sort him out. The female Xiao did not speak and waited silently. The middle-aged person took out a token and threw it to the female Xiao. "Go pick 200 people to go with you to Little Mountain Jie. With this token, that old person will not block you." "What is this subordinate's mission?" "You only need to accomplish one matter this time," the middle-aged Xianxia said. "Stars in daytime appeared in Little Mountain Jie. You will go investigate this matter." "Stars in daytime," the female Xiao had a shocked expression. "Yes, it has also appeared once in Sky Moon Jie. There is most likely a connection between these two occasions. You have to pay special attention to those Xianxia that escaped from Sky Moon Jie to Little Mountain Jie. If we find this person, what should I do?" the female Xiao, bowing. "Bring them back," the middle-aged person said. "I understand." Chapter 281, Gradual Advance. Nanxing Village had been destroyed again. This was like a peerlessly loud slap that landed heavily on He Xiang's face. He Xiang felt a rush of blood rush up his throat and he almost fainted. The expressions of the other elders were also terrible. They had achieved great victories recently, and saw the hope of survival. But at this time, they were hit over the head with a stick. "Who? Motherfucking who?" An elder lost control of his emotions, and shouted at the top of his lungs. "It definitely is that group. It has to be them." The crowd was furious. All of the elders were like a pack of wolves that were pushed to the precipice, their faces red as they breathed heavily. He Xiang steadied his mind. He tried to calm himself down. He raised a hand and stopped the shouts of the elders, saying, "We need to retaliate. A hard counterattack. Old Forefather is watching at us. All of Little Mountain Jie is watching us. If we are so easily defeated, no one will listen to us again. Old Forefather will lose his last thread of patience, and we will be finished." Catch them. Defeat them. At any cost. Xiang gritted through his teeth. The final battle has started. This is our final battle. This battle will determine if we live or die. No one spoke. The eyes of every elder were red, their faces twisted. Ji Wei and Sun Bao carefully entered the tunnels. Their eyes uncontrollably looked at the complex formations on the walls of the tunnels with intoxicated expressions. They were like unworldly country bumpkins that had entered the city for the first time, feeling as though their eyes were not enough to take in the sights. Their gasps occasionally rang out in the silent tunnels. Look at this, it can be interlocked like this. Ji Wei pointed at a place, and praised. I don't know what is inside Boss' head that he can think of a solution like this. Yes. Sun Bao replied, but his gaze didn't bear to move away. Boss learning in formations is growing deeper. Oh, I feel that Boss might be able to get a formation Grandmaster medal to play with, Ji Wei said. Boss won't be interested, Sun Bao got a hint, and contentedly shifted his eyes away. What use is that formation Grandmaster Jade medal to Boss? Will Boss depend on it for his meal ticket? We should probably get some so that we won't end up without the qualifications to be Boss assistants. Look at these formations, they are as beautiful as a picture. There's nothing to say about Boss' skill with fire. I say that if Boss forged, we could only be his assistants. Think about it, how old is Boss? Hearing this, Ji Wei nodded emphatically. You are right. We need to work on the little group of brats. AI, it would be great if they had half the talent of Boss. Sun Bao smiled scornfully and said, half of his talent, don't dream. We aren't young people, but have you ever seen someone as monstrous as Boss? Heavens, he isn't a person. He built this Golden Crow city by himself, and used fire forging methods. You might not have noticed, but I was dumbstruck on the spot. Ji Wei nodded with empathy. Yes, I was also stunned. Even with all of us assisting, we almost didn't manage to keep up the supply. I didn't sleep well any of those days in fear we couldn't keep up. Boss's fire paper technique, TSK, it is a pleasure to see, I didn't want to move away. Sun Bao snickered. Everyone is the same. Who has seen such wonderful fire forging technique? It is enough to scare me to death. And those formation battle watchtowers. 36 towers. Motherfucker, we're lucky Boss is Boss. If it was any other person, everyone else would lose their meal ticket. With the city, and the formation battle watchtowers, our Golden Crow city is probably unique among Little Mountain Jia, Jia Wei said, full of pride. Of course. Sun Bao also had a proud expression. He looked around, and then lowered his voice to say, but from what I see, Boss might not stay in Little Mountain Jia. Look at these tunnels, this formation belt. It is very big. Other than Jin Dan, I can't think of anyone who needs such preparations. Ji Wei was silent for a moment before saying, in any case, I'm planning on going with Boss. I'm not young anymore, I see the world clearly. There's nothing to say about how Boss treats us. As to the other, life and death, I'm too lazy to think. Your words are wasted on me, Ji Wei said unconcernedly. No one among us will run now. If any of the brats dare run, watch me break his legs. I'm confident in Boss. Just this Little Mountain Jia cannot trap Boss. Then why are you saying this? Ji Wei glanced at the other out of the corner of his eyes. Sun Bao said excitedly, aren't you excited? We are going to deal with a Jin Dan. Jin Dan. Ji Wei rolled his eyes, and said rudely. You're a pretty old person, why are you still so childlike? Quick, stop wasting time. We need to deliver this to Boss, he's waiting. You aren't excited at all. Jin Dan, that is a Jin Dan, oh, very excited. You aren't excited at all, how can you not be excited? Since you have this much energy, go back and forge some more black processing meditation mats. The slender bamboo almost can't meet the demand. Bao Yi looked at the mountains of Jingshi and materials in the storeroom and his face blossomed. Boss was right. The domino effect was really too fast. After that head had left, several more group of Xianxia had arrived shortly after. Some people had bought black processing meditation mat from others, and then came in search of more. Others were just passing by. They had to thank the outer hall. As the outer hall pushed forward, the Xianxia along the way continued to retreat and run. Consequently, many Xianxia would pass by Golden Crow City. Every Xianxia that passed by would gape when they saw Golden Crow City, so shocked they would almost drop from the sky. And what the city was selling made everyone go crazy. The appearance of the black processing meditation mat was a great explosion. The number of people that came to buy black processing meditation mat every day was so much they had lined up. It wasn't realistic for each person to buy one. Usually it was a group and they would buy a few dozen each time. About 3 people would share a single mat and could satisfy their daily needs. However, the direct result of the black processing meditation mat was the Jingshi that everyone had thrown to the side before increased in value. With the black processing meditation mat, Jingshi was equivalent to Ling grains. Many Xianxia couldn't bear to use Jingshi to purchase, and mostly traded using materials. So all kinds of materials flooded towards Golden Crow City, causing Bao Yi to increase the standard for taking in materials. Bao Yi's face was flushed, his mind excited. He had been a black market dealer for so long, but had never done business like this. What he was selling now would directly change the situation of Little Mountain Jie. He felt so happy he was going to faint. The supply was not keeping up with demand, and gave him enough space to express black to its limits. Talismans, materials, Jingshi. We'll take them all. Expensive? Oh, very sorry, we don't have discounts. The feeling of richness that he never had before took over his entire body. His life like this, what else could he ask for? The sky was dark and bloody, the ground was barren. This was a certain place in Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie. A troop of Yao camped surrounding a spring that looked like fresh blood. This was a blood spring. Blood springs were frequently seen in Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie. For Yaoma, blood springs were very good places. Yao could use it to calm their energies, and Mo could directly consume the spring blood to recover their strength. But for Xianxia, blood springs were a terrible place. The closer it was to the blood spring, the more brutal and restless the Ling power was. The spring blood of the blood spring was also a fatal poison for Xianxia. If Xianxia under Jindan came into contact with the slightest bit of it, they would be poisoned. If they were not careful, they would die. This troop of Yao was about 1,000 people. How far away are we from Little Mountain Jie? The leading commander asked. About 15 days of travel, his vice commander hurriedly said. Suddenly, a bead on the bracelet on his wrist lit up with a blue light. He made a light sound. Blue hyacinth. Orders from the Elder Council. He took down the bead glowing with blue light and threw it onto the ground. Pia. As the bead landed, it burrowed into the ground. Quickly, a blue plant grew with speed visible to the naked eye, flowered, and produced fruit. From beginning to end, it took just 2 breaths. The blue fruit produced a faint blue mist. The mist moved and roiled, forming an old face. Sir Tiansheng, after the discussion of the Elder Council, you have been commanded to move your division at the fastest speed possible to Little Mountain Jie, take over and hold the Jie River of Little Mountain Jie to Sky Water Jie, and are not permitted to fail. Yes. Tiansheng gravely responded. Pa, the mist dissipated. This blue hyacinth quickly withered and turned to dust. With a gust of wind, nothing was left. Send the order down. Gather immediately to travel, Tianxing said gravely. Yes, the vice commander hurriedly followed the order. Tianxing was still thinking over the order just now. In all the military orders of the Yao military, only the orders from the elder sect could use blue hyacinths. In other words, this order had come directly from the elder council. This kind of situation was extremely rare, and the first time he had encountered it. Something definitely had happened in Little Mountain Jie. Even though they had not rested for long, and everyone had not recovered from their exhaustion, the good discipline of the Yao military was fully expressed now. They quickly packed up. Little Mountain Jie, travel at our fastest speed. Dong Qing idly stretched out. It was very hard to be able to live such an idle life in Little Mountain Jie. He was secretly proud of his perceptiveness. As the first faction to submit to the Outer Hall, he became the example, and was put in charge of the first cadet branch of the Outer Hall. The first one of the Outer Hall. He narrowed his eyes, and enjoyed the sunlight falling on his face. Just this name was enough for him to have a good life in the future. Even though each month's jobs were not light, but it was a great improvement over his past life. Oh, he had to make a request for a batch of show slaves from the main hall. Suddenly, a subordinate stumbled into the yard and shouted in panic, "Darren! Darren! It's not good, it's not good." Dong Cheng's dream was disturbed, and he was very discontent. He furrowed his brow. "What are you panicking about? I haven't died yet. It's not good. Darren. It really isn't good, say, what isn't good?" Dong Zheng was even more discontent. He decided that if this guy couldn't mention a great matter, he would punish the other well. "Someone has attacked us, my ass." Dong Qing snorted. "In Little Mountain Jie, no one dares to come to our outer hall to." His voice suddenly stopped, his body freezing as he looked dazedly at the sky. In the sky, a troop was looking down at them. Suddenly thinking of something, Dong Cheng's face was drained of blood in an instant, his limbs went cold. Chapter 282, Fire Sickle Rock. It wasn't the first time Rong Wei came to Little Mountain Jie, but when she saw how damaged Little Mountain Jie was, she was still shocked. The house guards that came with her were also shocked. Clear Sky sect isn't really a good thing. "Look at Little Mountain, what have they done to it?" someone muttered. "Yes, they will be punished by the heavens. Is the Marquis going to move against Clear Sky sect?" Don't guess randomly. Listening to the mutterings of her subordinates, Rong Wei did not speak. Her mind was slightly unfocused. After a moment, she refocused. She hadn't seen Clear Sky Old Forefather. The Marquis token had been presented, and they were let into Little Mountain Jie. She could clearly feel the nervous mood of Clear Sky sect. She heard that someone had encountered something. Had something happened again in Little Mountain Jie? The incident of stars in daytime in Sky Moon Jie had disturbed many people at the time. She knew that the Marquis had paid special attention to the matter. Even though she had been brought up by the Marquis from childhood, she rarely saw the Marquis so concerned over a matter. The origins of the Marquis were deep and mysterious. She had never seen him attend to the major matters that occurred in Sky Moon Jie, but for the first time, she had seen a grave expression on Marquis' face concerning the stars in daytime. This was the second time, and was also due to the stars in daytime. There were many jade scrolls and old records in the Marquis compound. Growing up from childhood in the compound, Rong Wei's knowledge was much wider than the great majority of Shouja. She knew a bit about what stars in daytime meant. She felt slightly puzzled. The impression that Marquis usually gave her was that of an idle person. She couldn't help but feel nervous that he was so concerned about such a matter. She focused, and slowly said, "Let's go." The compound guards instantly closed their mouths. Miss Roan was not of Marquis' legitimate line, but in terms of favor, she was first in the compound. Also, Miss Rong had not failed the Marquis teachings, and was outstanding in all areas since childhood. It was just that she rarely left the compound, so her reputation was not known. The compound guards, regardless of their experience, were all respectful when they saw her, and didn't dare to do any posturing. Rong Wei's head started to hurt. Where should she start investigating the stars in daytime? Jiang Hao looked at the most wanted list and drooled, "Big brother, we are going to get rich now." The other people also showed undisguised greed. Jiang Wei was also swallowing hard, but he was calmer than his younger brother. Whenever he thought of that strange and terrifying female show, he would sink into deep terror. Don't forget about that female show. His voice was hoarse. The surroundings became deathly silent. Terror was imprinted on everyone's eyes. After seeing that silent massacre, 3 among them had their cultivation collapse due to long-term terror. The wails before their death still seemed to echo in their ears. The flames of greed in everyone's eyes were doused by a bucket of cold water. Jiang Hao shook. He forced a smile and said, "The one that will go find them is the outer hall. No matter how powerful the female show is, she is just one person." His voice became increasingly light, and his face increasingly pale. "No matter how many the benefits are, we will need to live to experience them." Jiang Wei's eyes were bloodshot, and he said gravely, "Since the outer hall is searching for them, they will be able to find them. The collision between the two sides is beneficial to us. Maybe we can even leave this damned place." "Brother, you think too highly of them," Jiang Hao said with a forced smile. "It's not that I think highly of them, but I hope they can do it," Jiang Wei sighed. The other people were silent. In Zhuomo's vast tunnels, the surroundings were filled with formations. His heart was excited. Finished. He finally finished. To set up such a large formation just with his power, he had enough to be proud of. Thinking it over, working day and night, only he knew how difficult it had been. Starting from when he began building Golden Crow City, he had never truly thought he could finish it. The increasingly tense situation was like an invisible whip continuously urging him to be faster. When it truly was finished, Zhuo felt he was in a dream. "Is this real?" he suddenly turned and asked the female show. The female show didn't seem to hear and didn't respond. Zhuo snickered and was not concerned. He muttered to himself, "Please don't let this be a dream." In this period of time, his consciousness had improved greatly, his skill with fire deepening with every day so that the later portion of his work had been completed quickly. With his previous skill level, it wouldn't have been possible to complete such a vast project without using the better half of a year. Pu Yao hadn't lied to him this time. He had improved greatly through the entire process of building the city, so much that even he was shocked. The jade metal head had entered third maturation. What excited him the most was that his consciousness had grown more than 3 times. Right now, he felt as though he was a basin of water, with so much water that it was almost overflowing. His consciousness probably wasn't far from a breakthrough. He also had a feeling that if his breakthrough could succeed this time, the degree of improvement would be very large. Looking at the surroundings, Zhuo was suddenly filled with confidence. Even if what he was facing was a Jin Dan. Right now, there was only one thing left to do. Zhuo didn't tell anyone the work had been completed, but the first person who felt the effects was Bao Yi. The supply of black processing meditation mats couldn't keep up with demand. Bao Yi felt proud, but also frantic. Yet suddenly the production of black processing meditation mat increased dramatically. He perceptively realized what had happened. Only if Boss did not require any supplies on his side, then the people of the forging division would be able to put all their effort into making black processing meditation mats. Of the 2 most famous products of Golden Crow City, one was Golden Crow Fire, the other was black processing meditation mat. Other than the batch that Bao Yi deliberately held back, the remaining Golden Crow fire had all been sold. Only Boss could make Golden Crow fire. Now that no one could find Boss through the day, who had the time to hope he could produce Golden Crow fire? Golden Crow City only sold one product now, black processing meditation mats. The wondrous ability of the black processing meditation mat spread throughout Little Mountain Jia like it had wings. Countless shouja flooded from all areas towards Golden Crow City. In a dusky mine shaft, Lilith Pagoda floated in the air like a dutiful supervisor as it directed those puppets to continuously work. The abnormal change had frightened the timid Lilith Pagoda half to death. Even though Zuemo had not scolded it, it still expressed an attitude of fulfilling its duties well. This caused the production of Jingshi and/or recently to grow dramatically. The cheer on Bao Yi's face had grown even more. Suddenly, a copper puppet stopped what it was going, looking dazedly at the strange item in front of it. Lilith Pagoda instantly detected the abnormality, and hurriedly flew over. It was a bright red rock that exuded a strange presence. Lilith Pagoda tilted its head and looked with puzzlement at this piece of red rock. Zuemo instantly received the information Lilith Pagoda passed over and rushed over. Since Lilith Pagoda was connected to Zuemo, this rock is strange. Zuemo went over and tapped it. The red rock was the size of a table and appeared like a piece of red jade, spreading threads of warmth. However, what was most unique was that it contained strong vitality. If one came close, they could make out the sound of a heartbeat. Was this something alive? Zuemo felt it was so fantastical. After circling the rock and thinking hard, he couldn't think of what this red rock really was. Pu Yao, what is this? Zuemo ran over to ask Pu Yao. Pu Yao sat in front of the gravestone and resting, acting as if he was ignoring Zuemo seeing Pu Yao's state. Zuemo understood that this guy was in a mood. However, he had long forgotten what he had done. A real man could bow and scrape, GE will endure. Zuemo piled on the smiles. Pu Yao, you are a honored Sky Yao, what are you doing holding a grudge against a little character like me? Go, oh no, if this little brother has done something wrong, please have tolerance. Pu Yao's eyes were still closed, and there was no movement, but Zuemo noticed that Pu Yao's spine had straightened slightly. It worked. Pu Yao, you are a millennia-old Sky Yao. The breadth of your mind, the composure, it is as wide as the sky, as deep as the ocean, your knowledge, your, okay. Stop with the flattery. Pu Yao's expression was impatient, but the smile at the corner of his mouth revealed his pleased mood. Zuemo mocked him inside. As expected of a 1,000-year antique. He bent under just this little bit of flattery. He piled on a fawning smile, some guidance. Pu Yao gave a light cough before slowly drawling, it's not embarrassing that you haven't seen this before. There aren't many shouja that have seen it. This is fire sickle rock. After absorbing the essence of moon and sun for a long time, it has borne an intelligence. If nothing had changed in Little Mountain Jia, this piece of fire sickle rock would just be an earthly treasure about 5th grade. Then now? Zuemo perceptively asked. Presently, the Ling energy of Little Mountain Jia has withered, and the power of the chaos has risen. But since this piece of fire sickle rock has an intelligence, it couldn't absorb Ling power, so it absorbed the power of chaos instead. Zuemo didn't understand. Power of chaos? Chaos is the originator of all power. No matter if it is shouja, yao, or mo, power comes from chaos. But because everyone walks a different path, the result is completely different. What Yaomua do is to go with the flow, while shouja chose to resist. The Ling power of the shouja is a natural enemy to the power of chaos. You mean he became a Yaomua? Zuemo pointed at the rock and asked with shock. Become Yao. Pu Yao was clearly smug. There is a fire Yao being nurtured here, but before it comes out, I don't know what kind of fire Yao. The intelligent souls of flora will become Yao, the intelligent souls of wild beasts will become Mo. If you throw Ling beasts into a place like Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia, and after corrosion by the power of chaos, it will become Mo. Sui Mo was slightly disappointed. So it's just a Yao, then shouldn't I kill the Yao? Pu Yao's face instantly became black. Who are you killing? Sui Mo shook. He remembered the guy in front of him was a Sky Yao. He smiled, joke. He then said, I'm just too disappointed. I thought I dug up a treasure, and didn't expect it was something useless. Who says it is useless? Pu Yao was clearly slightly excited. You just don't know it. Treasure, even if it was put in front of you, you won't recognize it. Then what is the use? Sui Mo hurriedly asked. Pu Yao closed his mouth and made a proud posture. Sui Mo wasn't tricked. He took out a flying sword from the ring, and moved it to the fire sickle rock. If I can't use it, I can't let other people have it. So let's kill it. Seeing the situation, Pu Yao said, Fire Yao isn't too different than your Ling beasts. You can use some of its abilities. Oh, so that's it, but I don't know how. Just drip blood. Once Pu Yao finished, he knew he was tricked. As expected, Sui Mo cheerfully turned the flying sword and swiped across his finger. He squeezed out a drop of blood onto the fire sickle rock. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.